Hello, everybody, and welcome back to more Misericorde, Volume the First. I don't remember what happened last time. Stream died at some point while we were reading some Latin. And then we went into the Misericorde. We chatted with a lot of the other nuns. We found out that Flora really doesn't want to be here. She wants to leave and learn how to paint or something. Hey, Slats. But yeah, Slats, I don't know if you came back, but we ended up playing like 3 more hours after I got the internet back up, or after, not the internet, the stream back up. And we had a lot of stuff happen. Let's see. Yeah, this is basically where we ended, right? Before the crash. But yeah, we ran into Angela again. We bumped into Margaret and Catherine again. They invited Hedwig to go to the Misericorde. Maybe that's where we were. I don't remember. Let's see. Angela, okay, so yeah, the big thing is that Angela was actually at the Misericorde. She seems like she wanted to tell Hedwig something, but she left before any of that happened. Hedwig is trying to get to corner Catherine to try to finally ask her about John Foreman, or whatever his name was. Whatever the guy's name is. What's his name? James Foreman. But we stopped the session before that actually happened, because there was a lot of other stuff that happened. There was lots of chatting. We talked to Margaret. We made Margaret kind of mad. Okay, there was also like a huge jam session. They started dancing, had a little disco. Adela did a footloose. It was wild. Things went crazy. All right, let's look at let's see. Quick save. I think this is the last thing we did. 21:45. Yes. Yes. So let's have our little chat with Catherine. Alright. Catherine had wandered over to our side of the Misericorde, nursing a drink in one hand and resting the other on her hip. Huh? Oh, I think she had a little too much to drink. Too right. I heard her bawling over there and thought to stay out of it, but now she's at the table yammering on and on about cats. Oh yeah, and also Flora is super drunk. She got really fucking drunk. She's on the floor, just like, hey, Hedwig, wanna help me break out of here? How are you faring? Me? I'm well. Having fun? To a degree. We've been consoling Flora. It worked. She's back to being quite irritating. Well, you can thank Hedwig. She's the expert. Oh? Did you impart some of your anchoress wisdom? Yes, I suppose I did. It was tough, but it was what Flora needed to hear. Marvelous. I still remember visiting your odd little window and asking all about something or other. You were quite a blunt instrument, if I recall. Was I? I once asked of the window to ask what the punishment for breaking a promise was. You were prepared with a whole lecture about how I shouldn't be taking any oaths in the first place, with several citations from Matthew on hand, of course. I'm afraid I don't remember that. It was years and years ago. That doesn't surprise me. Do you remember many of our questions? Do you know who asked what? I remember questions, but not who asked them. And I wouldn't tell anyone if I did. Good. I mean, not why I was asking, but good. Oh? Why were you asking? So, how's your first thingy? It's been fun. Don't worry about Flora. Someone's always crying at one of these. Sometimes more than one person. Oh no! It's her more often than not. Me! Crying. Absolutely untrue. I have a reputation to maintain. Uh-huh. Adela flipped the table over. Someone started getting weepy. I'd say you're getting about as rigorous an education in Misericorde etiquette as you'd possibly have. It's certainly been a learning experience. Oh, but it's been fun, right? We're having fun. Catherine was just as wine-addled as Flora had been, but it was clearly affecting her differently. Flora had almost seemed like a different girl. Catherine was simply multiplied. Whatever clarity she'd been experiencing when we chatted by the fire earlier had been enhanced with a slightly manic energy. I'm having fun. Yes, absolutely. Good. Because, you know, the superior would have me hanged if you didn't have a good time. Really? She put you up to this? Good heavens, no. I just intuit these things. You know? I can just see her bearing down on me because you complained. I don't complain to the superior. That's good. I mean, not that you have anything to complain about. Sorry, I wasn't insinuating you would complain, just that... By the way, actually, did you know that cow Angela complained about me to her once? To get back at me for... I forget where I was going with this. You were going to sit down and take it easy, I think. Yes. Thank you, Margaret. Yes, I was. I could sense that my window was closing. Catherine was a very different kind of drunk than Flora, but it seemed like she too was not far from falling to the floor. Actually, Margaret, could you give us a minute? Of course. She looked a little confused, but she obliged. Love her. Very clever. Wait. Was that Margaret or... Yeah, that was Catherine, yeah. Isn't she just... Margaret's wonderful! Catherine, I've been meaning to ask you something, and it's very important. If it's about the cat, it isn't mine. No, it's not about the cat. And I need to get Eustace or one of the other crafty ones to help me with my door. I'm sorry if it bothers you. Does the door bother you? No, it was now or never. James. I spoke to James. He says he can vouch for him about the night Catherine II died. Can you? Is that true? Catherine's brow furrowed slowly, and her eyes adjusted in a strange and unexpected manner. Finally, let's get some info. It was like I'd forcibly sucked the wine out of her somehow. You spoke to James. What did he say? Not much at all. He professed his innocence, though, and he said you might be able to prove it. Something to do with his traveling cloak. What traveling cloak? The one Darcy found. I was whispering in a whisper lower than I had known I was capable of. Detecting time at last, right? I was terrified that someone might overhear, but there was no turning back now. Not here. We can't talk about this here. Not with everyone else around. Then when? And where? Everyone turned to look at the door in unison. Are we expecting something? Perhaps Sister Darcy has brought some more food? Moira, who'd been sitting closest to the door, stood up to answer it first. She removed the bolt, swung open the door, and... i.e. Moira fell on her backside and scrambled away from the door on all fours. Oh yeah, they were also telling ghost stories. One of the ghost stories was, I think it was it Angela who mentioned it? I think it was Angela's story, that she was walking around to the loo at night, and then she saw death itself. Was it Angela? It might have been Catherine. And then it turned out it was just Moira. Everyone else screamed and wailed as soon as they saw what was at the door. The same hulking figure that had threatened me at the end of the hallway all those nights ago. The cloaked figure lumbered forward, its metal boots thudding against the stone floor. Everyone had made for the back of the room as fast as they could, all yelling at the top of their lungs, "This is a prank! This is 100% a prank!" I myself felt absolutely petrified, but I could not bring myself to move. I just stood there, assuredly white as a sheet, unable to move. I felt like my heart would give up if I took even one step. The monster took another labored step toward me. I stood there dumbstruck as it brought itself before me. A gauntleted hand reached under its cloak, and with a horrible grinding shriek it drew its sword. Everyone screamed again. They were practically baying. Cease your feeble inquiry, Sister Hedwig. I'm not afraid of you. Could you believe that this was not a lie? Faced with the sword, I felt an odd sense of peace. The glint of the blade in the candlelight, it offered me a noble release from the predicament I found myself in. Do not force my hand! Cease! Did you not hear me? I'm not afraid. Then you truly are a fool. Strike me down, then. I will gladly die in service of the Lord. I will gladly give myself in defense of what is right and just. If you would have killed me for pursuing the truth, then so be it. Hey, huh? I could practically hear everyone's head tilting in confusion at once. A musical chord of rustling fabric. I grow tired of this conversation. Consider this a warning! Still pointing the sword at me, the figure took a lurching step backward, only to trip on its own cloak. Oh, dang it. Dang it. I missed my chance. The woman who huddled behind me rushed forward. Adela grabbed the sword that had fallen out of my assailant's hand and held it at the neck. Adela, stop! Remove your disguise, Car, before I cut off your head and remove it myself. The cloaked figure held up their hands defensively. The hands looked far too small for the bulky gauntlets they wore. I glanced down at their legs and shocked to see that they were twisted and broken. Your legs! Are you alright? Oh yes, let's make sure this creep's legs are unharmed. Stop! My legs are alright. The voice sounded less ragged and imposing now. The figure shifted their weight, and I realized that the big metal boots they'd been wearing had simply come off in the tumble. With a sense of resignation, the monster lifted its hands to the black cloth mask. Cloth? How do you say cloth? I don't know. Concealing its face, and You did? Surprise. Oh man, I should have grabbed the screenshot of that. Hold on a second. We're going back. We're going back. We're quick loading. Quick load. Okay. We're skipping. We're skipping back to that so I can grab the screen caps. This is a very slow skip. Why is the skip so slow? That works. And then we gotta do this again. Surprise. Well, that is Michael killing Satan. I recognize that. Eustace, it was you? Yes. Wait a minute. Are you telling me Hedwig's ghost prank was actually your prank? That's right. Okay. Eustace winced as she pulled herself to her feet. My most elaborate ever. I know you enjoy tormenting people with your practical jokes, but this was a bit much. Hang on. I don't enjoy tormenting people. That was terrifying. I was so confused. I was dumbfounded. Part of me was relieved to discover that the ghost I'd been seeing was not a ghost at all. But the other part of me was feeling something indescribable toward Eustace. Eustace? Why? Well, that's a good question. Mostly because I thought it would be funny. Rather large miscalculation there, I'm afraid. You thought it was funny the first time. I thought it was funny when I thought this character was something Hedwig made up. Now that I know you actually went and dressed like a nasty devil and scared her, and now all of us witless, I'm reevaluating. So was Hedwig right when she told us? Did you really kill a goat? Eustace looked at me with a cold but clearly wounded expression. No. I think perhaps that Hedwig was so overcome with shock that she saw something in the shadows that wasn't there. Entirely reasonable, I should think. You were waving a flaming sword around, according to her description. That's the point. No fire this time. That's a point. No fire this time. Or did Hedwig imagine that too? It seemed like a waste of oil. Not to mention it's not good for the blade. Eustace beckoned for Della to pass her the sword back. Adela's eyes narrowed. Absolutely not. Come on. I'm the sacrist. I've got to put it back. I do not think this is behavior befitting a sacrist. And for disrespecting Sister Catherine's sword in this manner. Shameful. We should tell the superior about this. You're overreacting slightly, I think. I disagree. Catherine's sword. I was so angry that I couldn't help but blurt this thought as soon as it entered my head. Alright, so let's summarize what just happened. What is this? Why is this formatted like this? That was weird. Hedwig manages to get Catherine alone for a little bit, but Catherine does not want to speak about the topic of James Foreman in a place where everyone can hear. Then they are interrupted by the appearance of the figure with the sword. However, it turns out that this whole time it was a prank by Eustace, which none of the others find particularly enjoyable. Humorous, I guess, is a better way to put it. Humorous. I was so angry, I couldn't help but blurt this thought as soon as it entered my head. Huh? Did you not know this, Sister Hedwig? I scrambled to say something that would allay any suspicions. I spoke to Angela about what happened to Catherine, and she said it was the deliveryman's sword. Angela thinks she's smarter than she is. Although why she would try to deceive you about that, I have no idea. So it really was Catherine's. However, this does lead to the revelation that the sword did not, in fact, belong to the James Foreman, and was Catherine's all along. Well, it certainly wasn't the delivery boys. Do you know how much a sword costs? Especially one of that size. So how on earth was it Catherine's? It wasn't actually hers. She just liked to borrow it from the library. Or rather, she really liked to borrow it from the library. So it's from inside. It's far too expensive a sword for the delivery boy. Amazing. I like to go to the library to borrow books, video games, and swords. And you let her? I refuse to be questioned on this by someone who barely knows me and who didn't know her at all. You are not in the position to act superior to anyone right now, Eustace. I don't know if we need to tell Soup. But that was not on Eustace. Margaret, I know for a fact you and Catherine used to plan and execute far worse. I'm innocent. Catherine the Second. I think you should calm down, Eustace. I'm sorry we didn't find this prank particularly amusing. You threatened to kill poor Hedwig. I pretended to threaten her. Oh, well, in that case. Remind me, Margaret, what happened to the Superior before ours? That was nothing like this, and you know it. Yes, it was significantly worse. What are you talking about? Nothing. Alright, Laura mentioned some history involving the previous Superior. Involving Margaret's previous Superior, but is too vague to glean too much information. It was before your time, and before Eustace's for that matter. So she should keep it out of her mouth. I heard enough about it. Straight from you and her. Stop making this about me. This is about you and your stupid ghost costume. Margaret's acting more flustered now than she usually does. Maybe it's because she's drunk. She's normally just like cool as a cucumber type. Waving a sword in Hedwig's face. Honestly, how could you? It beggars belief that you'd attempt to flip this around on anyone else. Eustace looked around the room, but nobody offered any support. She was breathing heavily, and looked as if she were about to cry. Once she was certain nobody was coming to her rescue, she focused on me. Hedwig. Damn, slapper! I struck her so hard, my hand stung. Nobody is amused at Flora's attempts to change the subject. Eventually, she turns to Hedwig, who slaps the shit out of her. Eustace's face is better than the evening wine. Going Old Testament on her ass? On her face, at least. I realized I must have scraped her face with my fingernails during the swipe, as there was a touch of blood on her cheek. I half expected her eyes to start welling up with tears, but she just stood there. Perhaps she was dumbstruck. You are cruel, Eustace. Cruel and nasty. Did you enjoy making me feel small? Hedwig! I instinctively raised my hand again, though this time I was held back by several of the women behind me. Easy now. Have you ever said anything earnest to me, Eustace? Have you spoken to me truthfully even once? Of course I have. How could I trust you? Ever? I tried futilely to lunge at her again, but I was not strong enough to overcome the several people gripping my arm and shoulders. I don't know. I don't like you. That is fair. Damn. Let's all calm down now, yeah? Yes. Yes, I think that's quite enough theatre for the night. What's going on? Fuck Flora. Tonight's outing to the Misericorde is concluded, I think. Blame Eustace, I suppose. It is getting quite late, though. I'll be getting on. She slunk away to from the group, and out the door too quickly for me to object. The other women who had been holding onto me finally loosened their grips, all except Moira, who patted me on the shoulder consolingly. Let's get you to bed, Hedwig. I noted, but I kept looking at Eustace. She looked pathetic. She was not openly crying, but I swear I heard a sniffle as Moira piloted me past her and out of the room. The others were following suit, muttering to each other in quiet conversation. Once we were out in the hallway, I realized just how stuffy and airless the Misericorde had felt. I took in a deep breath of fresh air and felt a slight pang of regret, enough to make me turn around to see if Eustace had left the room. Moira tugged me away quickly. I think that's enough for tonight, eh? I don't know. I think I should apologize. Well, you could do that tomorrow. Wait, I thought you could do that tomorrow. Right now, what I think you need is some rest. I hit her quite hard. As well you should have, if I'm being frank. What a horrible practical joke. There was a slight twinkling sound as a foot collided with the empty tincture bottle I'd left on my bed earlier. Oops, sorry. No, it's my fault. Must have fallen off the bed. What was in it? Alright, let's see. This concludes the Misericorde's the Misericorde party. Moira steers Hedwig back to her room. She stumbles across the empty bottle with the tincture. Oh. She shut the door behind her and sat down on my bed, just like she had on my first day out of my cell. Nothing, not anymore at least. Something Darcy gave me earlier. Best to be careful, drinking anything Darcy gives you. It was actually rather helpful. She said it would give me confidence. Well, we'll have to tell her that it was a rousing success, won't we? We both chuckled. What a day, huh? Yes, quite a day. I laughed weakly at her for a moment, but I couldn't maintain the charade for long. I burst into tears. Moira made a sympathetic cooing sound and put her hands around my shoulders. I shrugged them off quickly. I'd had quite enough of people attempting to restrain me for one night. Instead, she offered the front of her robe for me to dry my eyes on, which I did accept. Oops. There. There. Let's see. But Hedwig only mentions that it was a Darcy concoction. Which Moira, jokingly warns her to be careful of. Then Hedwig begins, Hedwig's emotions break the surface. Jokingly. There. I think this was all a little bit much for you in one go, perhaps. Is it always like this? It feels like the whole abbey just fell apart. And it's all my fault. Well, this definitely wasn't one of our better nights, but no, I can think of worse. Really? But don't forget, someone died not too long ago. I think that might top you having a little too much to drink, don't you? I think that's a bad comparison, Moira. I mean, if you're saying, yeah, the one time you had a worse night was when someone died, that's not gonna help. That is, what are you saying? This is silly me. But even so, we have some colorful personalities here. It's not the first time we've had a minor clash. But I hit her. I had no idea I was even capable. I'm a freak. I should have never left my cell. Marge is stronger than she looks, you know. She's clapped Flora on the cheek more times than I can count. And I'm sure she'll smack Adela one of these days if they keep arguing about the sherry. I think Darcy has gotten into it with Catherine before. Although, that might have just been the influence of a particularly bad mushroom. That doesn't count. The details are different, but I'll be honest with you. I think people mostly remember the boiling over, not what was in the pot. Still. Would you believe I've gotten slapped a few times? What? Why? She chuckled again, and leaned down to give me a kiss on the forehead. So condescending. Oh no, I'm happy to gossip. But I think I have the right to withhold gossip about myself. Wouldn't you agree? I suppose that makes sense. You can ask Eustace about it, I'm sure. Maybe that's a good way to start mending that bridge. Or you could talk to Angela. I'm sure she'd have a particularly dramatic version to share. I groaned into her robe. Oh dear. I have to work with Eustace. We all have to work together, Hedwig. How? In the same room? It's going to be horrible. You'll find a way. We always do. She gently tugged her robe away from me. There was an embarrassingly soggy patch on her chest, visible even on the black fabric in the dim moonlight. What are you crying? That your tears have wet her chest that much? That is visible in the moonlight on black. I'll see you at the service tomorrow. Of course. Good. Get some sleep. You'll feel better in the morning. Alright, Moira mentions that, Eustace, that Hedwig's not the only one to have slapped someone. And brings up that she herself has been slapped, among others. Although won't tell the story herself. Is this important? Who knows? I promise. She made to leave. When she opened the door, I could hear Angela commenting to her from the landing. It would seem I left just before things got interesting. Hello, Zan. Welcome in. How's it going? Thank you for the follow, by the way. Your natural enemy reading. It's my natural enemy too, especially when everyone here has to have a different accent or whatever. This is Misericorde. This is I think it's basically, you know, it's basically a visual novel, but it's like, as far as I know, it's completely linear, but it's like a murder mystery. Someone killed one of the nuns at this abbey, and we're playing as the one nun who definitely could not have done it. And we know that she could not have done it because she was locked in a cell for 20 years. On purpose. She was doing it on purpose. Misery for the vocal cords, it's true. Yes, well. There's always a next time. She shut the door behind her, and the conversation became too muffled to focus on. I collapsed onto the bed, spread-eagled, and then half-heartedly attempted to get into it properly. Also, I should make a note of that. As she leaves, Hedwig Here's Moira and after Moira leaves, here's Moira and Angela having a conversation. What is Angela still doing up? Although the contents are unimportant. Yeah, I'm taking notes because I never do that except for mystery games. So we're getting into the swing of things. I stared at the ceiling, unsure what to do. It was late, but there was absolutely no chance I was going to fall asleep anytime soon. Something felt wrong inside me. Despite Moira's assurance that things would continue as usual, I felt as if I'd just stepped across the threshold, equally as dramatic as the one I'd crossed when I'd left my cell. Eustace's cruel joke had thrown so much of the past few weeks into question, but nonetheless I felt a bit ill. I rubbed the hand that I'd struck her cheek with. I could still feel the sting lingering. She had terrified me. Not just me, but the entire room full of women. For what? All in the service of some hazing ritual? Superior had warned everyone about that. I realized that she would have only mentioned it if it had been a problem prior. Perhaps this was typical. Perhaps I was unaccustomed to the space I now occupied. Unprepared for how adversarial and mean-spirited it was. As it was, there was no denying that over the past few weeks, and tonight especially, I had observed a community on the rocks. It wasn't just Eustace and I. It was Angela and Catherine, Adela and Charity, Flora and, well, everyone else. Adela and Charity? Those were the only conflicts either. All in all, it seemed that this place was kind of an excess of misery and resentment. I was restless. Sighing deeply, I got off my bed and quietly crept to my door. There was no conversation emanating from any of the rooms or the hallway. You know what? Let's separate this into a section. Trouble in Paradise. Alright. Unable to sleep, Hedwig decides to head out of her room. There was no conversation emanating from any of the rooms or the hallway. It seemed as if everyone had succeeded where I could not. I did my best to stay silent as I collected a cricket from the mantel and lit the candle in the fireplace and headed out for a stroll. It was quite cold out now. I thank God for my cozy robes. Thick woolen fabric did an admirable job of protecting me from the elements. I could wool up the extra fabric of my oversized sleeve to keep my free hand warm. I wandered back and forth across the landing a few times. I was a lot more confident spending time alone now that Eustace had outed herself as my mysterious stalker. I descended the stairs nearest the dorms and did a few slow laps of the cloister, deep in thought. Should I tell the superior? I felt uneasy about this. Margaret and a few others had seemed to balk at Aunt Adela's idea of involving her. Then again, I would have to report to her sooner or later, and it would be hard to pretend nothing had happened. Especially since I'd not even gotten the answer from Catherine that I had promised to make my priority. Well, it had not been for lack of trying. Perhaps I could corner Catherine before service tomorrow. She hadn't seemed unwilling to talk at all, just unwilling to do it in the company of others, which I could understand. On the other hand, if Eustace had handed me the evidence I needed anyway, what if Eustace had handed me the evidence I needed anyway? Who else could have beheaded someone but the woman with access to the sword? How cavalier Eustace had been with her threats, too. Cease your meddling. In retrospect, Eustace's attempt at a booming, authoritative voice had been a little unconvincing. I'd been swept up in the moment, I suppose. Nonetheless, the threat seemed quite targeted. It was not the first time Eustace had advised me to keep my nose clean. I took a turn out of the cloister and into the paths between the mostly unused rooms in the buildings the superior had led me past on the way to the hospitalum. The brisk night air was doing something helpful for my thoughts, at the very least, and I wanted to stretch my legs further. Eustace controlled access to the sword, there was no doubt about that. Thinking more on the situation, was there really any other reason needed to finger her as the perpetrator? Catherine had been beheaded, and the wretched tool had been left in the cloister as an ill omen. I had no idea why Eustace would want to kill Catherine, but it was that my responsibility to find out? I'd been charged with finding Catherine's killer. Catherine had been killed with a sword. The one sword in the Abbey resided under a lock and key, a key that Eustace controlled. What else was there to it? As I wandered the path toward the outer wall of the Abbey, I became surer and surer of this line of reasoning. Alright. She begins to walk along the grounds, convincing herself that Eustace is definitely Catherine's murderer. Primarily due to her access to the sword. Why did the why matter? I was not here to judge. I thought about Flora. If Eustace was found guilty and handed over to the diocese, maybe the clouds surrounding the Abbey would part. Maybe she would be happy. I thought about Catherine. Something was weighing on her, and it was clearly something to do with the night of Catherine's second death. Had she seen something? Was she simply too afraid to speak? She suddenly left in a hurry after Eustace's little stunt backfired. This too might be resolved if Eustace was found to be the guilty one. I reached the end of the courtyard and stood in the shadow of the crumbling outer wall. Goodness, they really should have built a gate here. Anyone could have come into the Abbey from this direction if they braved the hill and the cold. It could have been anyone. And yet, the longer I turned things over in my head, the more I thought about the ghost stories people had told early in the evening. A cloud of negativity. Maybe it really was a haunting. Eustace has been dressing up as a ghost. As my ghost. But what about Flora's? Adela's? Was every ghost story here a tale born of Eustace's mean streak? I found that hard to believe as much as that astounded me. Demons and devils. They infested this place. I saw a light in the distance. My heart dropped out of my chest. I scrambled through the open archway in the wall, desperate to see what was out there on the moorlands this late at night. As she wanders, she sees a light in the distance. Rolling hillocks made it difficult to get a good look from my position. It's Fae time! Fae are coming! They're being like, hey, we're Fae. We don't really believe in God and all that, but can we... Whoa. Can we steal your name? I did my best to quietly hop and sprint forward, keeping myself in as high a position in the rolling field as I could. The light ahead of me kept dipping out of sight. Finally, I got close enough to get a good look at the shape. They had taken the same route the Superior and I had traveled the other day. Whoever was taking the same route that Hedwig had taken with the Superior to visit the Hospitalum. I froze. The traveler had not seen me, but they were liable to at any moment if I happened to look over the shoulder. Looking back on it, the intelligent choice would have been for me to turn back to the Abbey right away, wake the Superior up and catch Eustace, I was assuming, in whatever duplicitous act he was up to. But perhaps through a mixture of wine and whatever Darcy had given me earlier in the evening, I was not acting intelligently. Not to mention the sheer rush of shock I was feeling at that moment. I followed her. It was not easy. It was quite cold out, and even in the moonlight, I had to rely on my candle to watch my footing. A strong gust of wind— I think it's Catherine, actually. Hey, Catherine. About to talk to James Foreman or something. A strong gust of wind could have extinguished my light, but mercifully it survived the whole trip. What would I have done if she turned around? Can't say for sure. I presume I would have blown the candle out and run straight backwards. After an agonizingly long walk, we arrived at the Hospitalum. My heart was pounding out of my chest. The figure ahead of me broke left, around to the back door that the Superior and I had taken down to the lower level of the building. My first impulse was to watch through the small window I had seen at the top of the dungeon, but I realized how obvious that would be if either of them happened to look up. I blew out my candle just to make sure I was invisible. Another part of me wanted to simply tackle the mystery nun on the stairs before she could get to James and demand to know what she was doing out here. Hedwig follows, watches the figure walk around to the back entrance, to the same back entrance. but I reasoned it would likely be more useful to hear what they were going to talk about. With rats going to be made, would I learn some earth-shattering secret that would illuminate the conspiracy I was working to unfold? I stood as close to the window as I could, while still feeling reasonably out of sight. This frustratingly made it impossible to see what was happening. I was hoping that the sound would carry, but they spoke quietly, and the echo made it impossible to discern anything meaningful. She attempts to listen in, but obtains no information, as they are speaking too quietly, and she cannot see anything. I could at least make out that the tenor of the conversation was calm. I'd been worried that I was about to overhear an intense argument of violent threats, but whatever James and his mysterious liaison had to say to each other, it never rose above a dull whisper. I wonder if Catherine has a thing going on with James Foreman. I feel like that would make sense, given her characterization. Oh yeah, this is something we learned last time. Catherine was from basically a rich family, but she ended up causing a bit of trouble, and basically the courts decided that she had two options. They decided she had two options: either go to the court and possibly face execution, or become a nun. And she decided she'd rather become a nun than die. But whatever James and his mysterious liaison had said to each other, it never rose above a dull whisper. He'd taken off more than that traveling cloak. I wanted very badly to take a peek through the little window, but the moonlight was such that anyone passing in front of the opening would be supremely obvious. The conversation grew quieter, and I became worried that they had grown suspicious. Eventually, I made out a sigh of resignation. I suddenly realized that if the conversation came to a close and I was still here, I'd have to follow the person I was spying on back to the Abbey, as I was now without candlelight. I did not want to further risk being caught following this person. I crept away from the wall I'd been pressed up against, and then began to sprint back towards the Abbey. In the dark, I hoped anyway. It was very dark outside. There was enough moonlight to see the general shape of the ground in front of me, but little else. I ran as I'd never ran in my entire life. Drew to a close. Hedwig decided to sprint back in the darkness so as not to get caught. She's gonna fucking trip. It's gonna be something weirdly innocent, except for the fact that it was suspicious that they went to talk to James in the first place. I was out of breath quickly, and soon after that I could feel a sharp pinching pain in my side. Oh, she's got cramps and stuff already. I stopped every now and then to collect myself, making sure not to change direction on accident. I didn't even know if I'd started running in the right direction. I just knew that further adjustment would surely result in disaster. I'd never run like this before, and it was making me aware of muscles and bones I'd never realized existed. Like leg bones. My inner thighs felt stretched and ready to snap. My chest grew tight. Whenever I pushed myself particularly hard, that pinching pain returned harder, and with a pulsing rhythm, I could feel under my skin as if lute strings inside me were being plucked. Bodies are truly disgusting things, aren't they? Miraculously, it seemed I'd aimed true. I could see the Abbey walls ahead of me. I'd veered a little somewhere along the route, but not as significantly as I'd feared. I slowed my sprint to a canter, and then eventually to a limping walk. I made it through the archway I'd walked through earlier, and then my knees gave out. Did you at least hold on to the pricket? Did you leave evidence that there was someone else there? I felt the ground completely exhausted. I rolled into the grass next to me and attempted to get to my feet, but I was spent. I retched a few times. Droning, I made it up to all fours. Oh, did you puke? Did you puke and leave more evidence? You're the one person who just pukes everywhere. Everyone's gonna know it's you. She has a rough go. That makes it to the Abbey, where she falls to her knees and pukes. Black bile spilled out of my mouth onto the grass with another heave. I realized that it was mostly wine I was expelling, sore and sickly. I was truly pathetic to behold. I could feel my body giving up. I struggled to remain awake. I could just pass out here, but... She passed out there. see, I guess it was Catherine. Then passes out. Mitchie passes out. Catherine finds her. Hedwig, what did you get here? I scrambled to my feet. Catherine was standing in the archway, looking concerned. I couldn't sleep, so I went for a walk around the abbey. Must have pushed myself too hard. Goodness. Where's your candle? You're being very suspicious, Hedwig. Do you need any help? She was smiling, but she looked rather peculiar. She held her hands behind her back, a rigid pose I'd never seen her stand in before. No, thank you. Oh, I see. Well, have a good night. Catherine, what were you doing? The same thing you were, of course. You can never sleep after a night of Misericorde drama. What did you and James talk about? I felt a surge of bravery. We were alone, it was the middle of the night. We could not weasel out of this one. I don't know what you're talking about. Catherine, please. She sighed deeply. Listen, you must promise not to tell anyone about this. How do you know about James anyway? Hedwig decides to confront her about James, about her conversation, about Catherine's conversation with James. How do you know about James anyway? I asked the Superior to introduce us. Since I was replacing Catherine the second as chronicler, I wanted to know what I was stepping into. He told me to kill her, and then he told me you could vouch for him. We stood in silence for a moment. And you believe him? I do. And what do you stand to gain from helping him exactly? It just seemed like the right thing to do. I wouldn't want to occupy a position I had lingering questions about. Let's quick save. Catherine nodded, looking less confident than I'd ever seen her. Very well. I can certainly tell you he did not kill her. Really? How? He mentioned something about his tunic. What did he tell you? They were definitely having sex in the library or something. Catherine admits that James definitely did not kill Catherine. Other Catherine. That was more or less the whole of it. I was trying to ask you for details in the Misericorde. Well, I know he was not wearing a tunic when Catherine II was found. How? Because he was with me. And he didn't slip away? No. No, I'm quite sure. He was deep inside, you might say. I'm quite sure of that. Where were you? In my dormitory room. So that's the musky smell. That was what the musky smell was about. You know, you do you, girl. I know you're breaking your vows and such, but, don't make her explain, Hedwig! Oh my god! As he was in her dormitory room. With her. Really? Why? Hedwig, this is humiliating enough. Please don't make me say it. What? I'm confused. World's greatest detective. World's greatest detective. Why? What? I'm confused. Oh my goodness. This would be precious if I didn't feel so, well, mortified. All I could offer her in response is a blank expression. Hedwig, James and I had a relationship. A physical relationship. I know he did not kill Catherine because we've been fucking. Is that conclusive enough for you? Is that what you wanted to hear? Hedwig, my energy had finally dried up completely. My knees gave way. Oh, this music, what is this called? This track? Doesn't say. Wait, does it say? It normally says in the corner what track is playing. There it is. Now playing Scandal. What an appropriate name. I saw a smear of stars and then black. She fainted. She was so scandalized. Hedwig. There she is. Thank goodness. Thank you for your assistance, Moira. What happened? I was on a walk to the privy, and I found you passed out on the path. Wait, no. Oh dear. She's still delirious. I'm beginning to worry the thin mountain air isn't very good for her. Do we have any dried fruit around here? Shocked at this revelation. Shocked at the revelation. We got double revelation going on. Hedwig dies. I'm shocked. She's woken. She wakes up later in the Superior's office with Catherine and Moira and the Superior. Catherine is trying to pretend that the privy, or that she was going to that she was just going to the privy, join to the privy. Yes, one moment. I was lying on the floor in the Superior's office. Moira and Catherine were standing above me, both looking concerned. Moira most especially. Catherine's concerns, it seemed, went beyond my well-being. Do you remember what happened before you fainted, Hedwig? Catherine and I were talking and... No, that was after I found you. Moira, I'm quite worried about this. The Superior returned with a small wooden bowl. Moira plucked a small dried berry from it and crouched down to feed it to me. Something sweet might help at least. Get your blood sugar up. Your glucose levels are kind of down, it seems. Oh, so are you on a walk, Hedwig? You look exhausted. Yes? I was unable to sleep. Sleep deprived. Of course. That explains it, the confusion. Yes? Yes, I would. Thank God you went to the privy when you did, Catherine. I don't particularly love that phrasing, but yes. Catherine, you're so funny. The berry Moira had given me was definitely sweet and delicious, although I wasn't sure how that helped. Nevertheless, I was lucid enough to understand that Catherine was signaling to me that the information that she shared with me was not something she wanted to discuss in front of Moira and the Superior. Begrudgingly, I played along. Yes, I remember now. I was restless after what happened to the Misericorde, and went for a walk to clear my head. I think I probably had too much to drink. Oh dear. What happened in the Misericorde? Nothing you need to worry yourself with, the Superior. Just a typical womanly exploits. The Superior sighed, but did not push the subject. Well, thank you, Catherine, at any rate. God only knows what would have happened to poor Hedwig if you hadn't found her. And thank you, Moira, for being on hand to help her. I was on my way to the privy as well when Catherine found me. What luck! A strange but welcome miracle. Moira says that she was also on her way to the privy when Catherine found her help with Hedwig. Whoa. Do we believe that? I think that's a motive, or not a motive, but like an opportunity. Hello, Eva and Echo. How's it going? Hope you're having a good one. We're playing Nun Murder Mystery today, and then there was none. Actually, it's actually called Misericorde, but with the French spelling and not with the English spelling. Well, I see no reason for you all to be crowding my floor at this late hour. Off to bed, all of you. Of course. I was pulled to my feet by my would-be saviors and guided toward the door. Oh, and Hedwig, if you don't mind, I'd appreciate you checking in tomorrow after service. Just so I can confirm that you're well. Yes, Superior. Once through the door, I was able to move with my own strength. I was sore all over, but I could walk at the very least. The three of us walked in silence through the cloister toward the stairs to the dorms. Moira let out a lilting chuckle at one point, and I could hear Catherine exhale wearily through her nose. Wearily through her nose. I'd half a mind to slap Catherine the way I had Eustace. I was not sure I could ever look at her the same way again. I felt ashamed to be protecting her dirty little secret for her, and even more ashamed that I had seemingly instinctually agreed to do so. What was this place turning me into? I realized I was still carrying the pricket, looped around one of my fingers. Well, at least she didn't drop it, but I guess she wasn't leaving evidence anyway, because Catherine found her anyway. Looped around one of my fingers. I was stretched so thin, I had not thought about it the whole walk back. I placed it back on the mantel when we arrived at the dormitory. Well, good night. Good night, Moira. Yes, good night, you two. And thank you. We were all speaking in low whispers so as not to wake anyone else. Don't mention that, silly. I should check this out myself, so gotta go. Bye, have fun. Yeah, I'll have fun. Go check it out. It's pretty cool so far. There's not much gameplay though. It's just a lot of reading, but it's been pretty interesting so far. If Laura or Margaret hears about this, I'll never hear the end of it. Mention the evidently miraculous convergence of Moira's and I's bodily needs. Heavy humor is the lowest of the low. The Superior asks Hedwig to meet with her. After service. It was after service, right? Tomorrow. Then the three, nuns leave. Catherine asks, doesn't want the coincidental privacy to be mentioned. Naturally, Flora finds it uproarious. We split up and went to our separate doors. Catherine had to open and close hers with great care, as it was still creaking terribly. I sighed and collapsed face first onto my bed. I didn't even have the energy to undress, and I was asleep before I hit the pillow. I dreamed of soldiers chasing me with pikes. Ooh, interesting dreams. Why soldiers? Okay. That was fun. That was weird. But we got information! We finally have information! Oh my god. I awoke feeling worse. Even worse than when I'd fallen into bed. The soreness in my body had escalated to stiffness. I groaned aloud as soon as I realized I was no longer sleeping. I would take my chances with the armies in my dreams. I would rather? Did she say that? I would rather? I would no. I could hear people shuffling outside my door. I was somewhat surprised that I'd even managed to wake up at my usual hour, considering how late I'd been up and how exhausted I felt. It was all I could do to roll off the bed and stumble out of my room to join everyone for service. I could barely stay awake through the whole thing, which made me feel wretched. I'd already forgotten praying the full set of the hours. If I could not even make it through these compromised services, who was I? Hedwig, how are you feeling? How on earth could she be so chipper after a night like ours? Fading, I must admit. She giggled and offered a sympathetic expression. I gave her a perfunctory smile back and took off in the direction of the Superior's office for a requested meeting. I made it there before the Superior did. She was a few minutes behind me, no doubt the last to leave the chapel. Goodness, Hedwig, you know you can always skip morning service if you feel ill. Quite alright. That first hangover. She needs to drink more. What do they do to cure hangovers if they can't drink water? And, like, where are they get? I guess they have water, but they drink wine with everything to hydrate. So what do they do to avoid or to clear up the hangover? Drink more wine? Drink mimosas? Is that what they do? Are mimosas cocktails? I think they're. Anyway. She unlocked the door and ushered me inside hastily. I'm not a drinker, so I don't know anything about what a mimosa is, other than that people drink it during brunch. So? Yes, you Superior? I do hope you have some news for me, even if with your little tumble. Yes, as a matter of fact. Catherine's account. I guess it's still technically Catherine's account here. She nodded with faint approval and urged me to sit down. I did so gratefully. She in turn sat in her grand chair. I was able to ask Catherine about the tunic. Indeed, she can vouch for James. Well, that's fantastic news. What did you say? How did you approach the subject? Alright, Hedwig, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna tell her? She's not gonna tell her. She's definitely not gonna tell her. Oh god, she might tell her. Oh god. I think she's not gonna say anything though. Or if she does, Catherine needs to be protected anyway because she has information that keeps James free. As the evening wore on, things got looser and looser. I simply asked the question at an opportune time. In my head, I was navigating through a thick fog. I was unsure of how much information to divulge to the Superior. To spare her the embarrassment of hearing it and me the embarrassment of having to say it. Alright, gotta get some issues. Is that all? Seem a little worse for wear. I heard whispers of things getting rather heated. So, well, Angela was in here complaining about something or other at one point. Yes, there was a bit of a kerfuffle at one point. I see. She finds making friends rather difficult, I'm aware. Is that all? Nothing relevant, no? She raised an eyebrow. Actually, that's not true. Eustace knocked on the door at one point later in the evening, dressed as a ghost and waggling a sword at me, as some sort of mean-spirited joke. And then I slapped her across the face quite hard, and then I think Thora might be plotting to run away, which would be horrible. We have to help her see reason. The meeting with the Superior. Hedwig says that she managed to get information from Catherine that James Foreman could not have been the killer. Although she lies about the circumstances surrounding this. And then discusses what the events at the Misericorde. And then after the evening fell apart, I couldn't sleep and I went for a walk to clear my head. But I saw someone walking towards the hospitalum, and I followed them, and it was Catherine, and I heard her talking to James, but I couldn't quite hear what they were talking about. And then I went all the way back in the dark and collapsed on the path, and then Catherine found me, and oh, she's saying it. And that's when I really asked her about it. She admitted it. Think about the tunic. She said she saw him that day without one, and both of the Superior's eyebrows are raised now. Well, well, well. And then, yes, I realized I was panting. Nothing. Sorry, I got carried away. That's everything. So Catherine spoke with James in the middle of the night. How odd. I fear that this does not allay my suspicions. No? He claims Catherine can vouch for him about this tunic of his that is supposedly able to clear his name. But if they are conspiring in secret... Hedwig, you fucked up. From Hedwig's telling, the Superior believes that Catherine's words cannot be trusted without, must be taken with a grain of salt. Because she had time to discuss with James beforehand. How do I know the whole idea wasn't simply concocted out of thin air? I suppose there's no way of knowing. I applaud your investigation work, but I'm afraid this puts us right back where we started. Not without further corroboration, anyway. This is tainted testimony at best. I had a strong suspicion that Catherine had been telling the whole truth to me last night. She'd been very reluctant to speak on it, and a strong hint in this very office that the embarrassing truth was my secret to keep did not feel like they were part of some grander lie. Surely if this was the case, she would be spreading that lie further afield, but I couldn't bring myself to tell the Superior. If only she knew how tainted. Or you think they were doing butt stuff? It was embarrassing. It was based entirely on my personal feelings, and if by some small chance Catherine was capable of murder, I would not want to make myself her next target. Tainted testimony in particular, given Catherine's circumstances. Unless there's another detail here that makes you find the story more believable. I had reneged on my promise, Catherine, to not speak a word of the night's events to anyone else already. But something else was keeping me from sharing the final, perhaps critical element of her story. I felt dirty just thinking about it, and I did not want to even imagine what Catherine might do if she suspected that I'd blabbered about her liaisons with James. Especially, I remembered with a shiver, while she still had access to the sword. Even if she was innocent of Catherine's murder, I worried I might become her victim if I used this information against her. Picture it, Henny? Hedwig, tomorrow, I would like you to travel to the village with some companions. The words felt like a bucket of cold water. Hedwig doesn't believes that Catherine is telling the truth, based on her hesitancy, but cannot share her reasons with the Superior. Superior wants Hedwig to take a trip to town with some companions. The village? Indeed. Do not worry, as I said, you will not be alone. I realize it will be a new experience. Catherine will be included, I presume. Goodness, no. Maura and Eustace would be fine. Not Eustace, please. Not now. We can't have you two falling out over this. You must work together. I'm sure I do not need to remind you that you must maintain a healthy relationship with everyone. Must I? Of course, unless you want to be another Angela. Heaven's sakes. Don't complain, it's not that often someone gets to go down to the village. A trip out with Eustace might do both of you some good. Get some fresh air with your compatriots, and commiserate over a change of scenery. It was not that long ago she was in here speaking quite highly of you, I might add. What is it we would be doing in the village? There are people there who would be able to provide some insights into how seriously we should take James and Catherine's insistence. goodness, it's a shame you weren't able to hear what they were talking about. It would save us a lot of time. I weighed my options. As stressful as it was to imagine, I decided that a trip beyond the bounds of Abbey would be preferable to risking Catherine's rage. Girls stay out to see the village people? They're gonna stay at the YMCA? Besides, the superior seemed quite adamant about the idea. I shouldn't have followed her in the first place. I certainly wouldn't have suggested it, but it was brave of you. You're beginning to think on your feet. Perhaps the chess lessons are helping. Quite possible. Anyhow, knowing that Catherine and James are in communication complicates things, but perhaps we can glean some idea of whether she knows something and is helping James out of guilt, or if something more sinister is going on. I'm afraid I don't follow. Hedwig, do you not know why Catherine left the comfort of the village? She didn't mention it last night in the Misericorde. Something about local politics. She offended the wrong person or something like that. The superior let out a surprising chortle. I see. Well, I suppose that is not untrue. Oh god, what did she do? She suggests Moira and Eustace. Then the topic of why Catherine left the village comes up. Let's see. She also suggests getting some information about whether Catherine's and James's word can be trusted. Still, I am rather surprised. I would have expected the rumors around her to be one of the first things you heard. What rumors? That Sister Catherine murdered her husband. Oh! Oh! There's a rumor that Catherine murdered her husband. Spicy! I nearly choked on air. What? The superior held up hand gently. I do not believe it for an instant, to be clear. In fact, I think it's very likely that that is precisely the kind of story the people she expressed contempt for would concoct to harm her reputation. She was in a competitive business, you understand. Or rather, her husband was. I tried my very best to keep up with the conversation, although my throat felt bone dry. My throat feels bone dry. Let me take a drink of water. Blech. It was difficult to get the words out. And what was that? The vineyard, of course. You might see it on your way down the mountain. Spear doesn't believe this. Her husband was in a competitive business. Wine. Grapes. He owned a vineyard. It's a particularly good one, I might add. At least for this country. All of our wine uses grapes from the slopes of Linbarrow. Do you think that her husband just died and she was blamed? I've no proof, but it's more believable than her killing someone. But this is Sister Catherine we're talking about. The Sister Catherine of a few years ago, at least. No. Her story is that the man fell down the stairs and some unscrupulous hawks saw an opportunity to stop her from inheriting a fortune. He owned a vineyard. Catherine says that the man fell down the stairs and died. And the superior believes that others used the story that she killed, the murder story, to prevent Catherine from inheriting a fortune. So in the village, speak with the townsfolk. I'm curious how they feel about Catherine now. Perhaps there is a pattern we have overlooked. I thought you believed Catherine. Surely this is a waste of time. I do believe that Catherine is innocent of murdering her husband, but I must confess it is a purely gut feeling. Poke around for me, see if there's any evidence to support that claim. It would be good to show the bishop some support from a source who is not accused of a similar crime. You're worried Catherine and James are conspiring? You think they might have killed her? What, together? Thanks for your intrepid investigation last night. We can no longer rely solely on them vouching for each other. We have a responsibility to follow up on the connection, no matter how I feel. Perhaps I've been played for a fool. We'll concoct a simple cover story for your visit, bringing some finished wine or some other goods down to share, perhaps. My heart sank. I just put Catherine in harm's way, it seemed. Although, perhaps I was in harm's way around Catherine. This was all too much to keep in my head at once. What is it with Catherine and stairs? Remember the first day where Catherine was like, "Oh, steady on. The stairs aren't that hard." Just say it, a voice in my head murmured. Just tell the superior that Catherine's been... What should I ask? Who should I speak to? I speak to whomever will give you their time. Bring up the topic carefully. And just... get a sense. A sense! A sense. Anyway, this is good. We are making progress. You're doing quite well for yourself, I must say. You're quite resourceful. Thank you. But does Eustace have to come with us? If I really am going on this village trip, follow the scent of murder. It's true! It smells like blood and black bile. As I said, it sounds like an opportunity to mend whatever bridge between you is already broken. I see no reason to keep you apart. All I could do was sigh. I was pouting just a little, I will admit. I'll meet you halfway. I shall send the word to both Moira and Eustace for you, so you'll be spared at least one awkward conversation. And cats and musky cats, yes, true. Fair enough. Thank you. She sighed and rested her chin on her hand. Sometimes I wonder how I manage. Sounds like you could cut a whole book about the drama happening beneath my station this week alone. I look forward to reading your chronicles one day. It's not so bad. So I thought until, well, she made a cutting gesture across the neck with a grim expression on her face. I used to think it was good to let these things be and let the sisters sort things out themselves, but would I have prevented Catherine's murder if I had taken a more active interest in the whispers? I would stop after I turned the corner. Surely I don't know. I do not like meddling. And now circumstances have conspired such that I must meddle greatly through you. Alas. I noticed the faintest whiff of wine on her breath as she exhaled a deep sigh. I'm afraid I'm in no state for chess this morning. Have a productive rest of your day, Sister Hedwig. I stood up from my chair and clasped my hands together, holding them out half-heartedly. Thank you, Mother Superior. I will endeavor to do so. She nodded and beckoned to the door. I left swiftly. I could feel the pressure building in my head, beginning to match the aching of my body. I groaned aloud and rolled my head around my shoulders. It was a lovely morning, at least. A wispy cloud of fog had settled over the grass in the cloister, and sunbeams reflected out of it at pleasing angles as I walked past. Hedwig dear, good morning. Marta and Charity were seated in the wooden chairs at the edge of the grass, looking perfectly relaxed. Outside of the meeting, outside near at the cloister, Hedwig runs into Marta and Charity, who are sitting on the chairs. I guess they're just chairs. Smiled wearily, and waved at Marta, who beckoned to me closer. In trouble, are we? No. The Sophia just wanted a report on how I was feeling. I fainted last night. on my way to the privy. Oh dear, we had quite a night, didn't we? Charity's been telling me all about it. There was a dark glint in her eye that I did not altogether appreciate. I feel ashamed. Don't be. Lord knows I've wanted to smack Eustace more than once. She can be a pompous little thing. She deserves it for scaring you girls witless. Still, I didn't know you had it in you. Nor her, for that matter. I had no idea either. I've never struck anyone before. I abhor violence. Don't we all until it suits us. Just try not to make a habit of it. She says as if she never did. My fighting days are behind me, I'm afraid. It is much more difficult to bring people up right with only harsh words. I've tried hitting some sense into these women and it hasn't taken. I've tried pleading with them about the virtues of living well and it never stuck. I'm afraid, then, that I must simply appeal to your good nature, Hedwig. I don't want you to end up like Catherine. Goodness! Apologize for offending you. You didn't. Charity had been telling Marta about the Misericorde events. She didn't, did she, Marta? Not at all. I'm just reminded of Catherine's flirtations with that particular kind of apologia. Nobody really abhors violence. I failed to turn the other cheek, as it were. As well you should have, as I would have as well in your position. Oh, Marta, you're just in one of your moods. I'm starting to realize that I've been in one of my moods since Catherine was taken away from us, and I'm not sure I will ever fully recover. As if that's your fault. Was it not? I gave up on her. Her gift for persuasion was too much for me. I let her get away with too much. Catherine's silver tongue stayed my hand too often. Do you remember when she locked Flora in that box? Oh my, yes. What happened? Marta wonders if she was too lenient, if she let Catherine get away with too much. Apparently, one time she locked Flora in a box. One day, I went down to the cellars a little early, and I heard an alarming racket coming from one of the crates we used for packing wine bottles. I opened the lid, and what do I find inside? Poor little Flora, grasping for air, curled up so tight I had to enlist two sisters to help pull her out. In a crate for packing wine bottles. It was a very strange morning. Laura, of course, would say nothing. She was very loyal to Catherine. Catherine, though, confessed to everything almost immediately. She admitted that it was all a practical joke that had gone too far, and that she hadn't known that the lid was too tight to let the air in. Why on earth would she think to put Flora in there in the first place? Laura wouldn't say anything, but Catherine had confessed to it. So that's suspicious. For some reason I don't believe Catherine's confession. I think Catherine decided to cover for someone else. Saying she hadn't thought that Flora would have trouble getting air. Like, we only get Catherine's side of the story. We know Catherine... Flora was trying to get smuggled out of the... It could be that. It could be that. Flora was trying to get smuggled out in the crate, but she forgot to poke in air holes, and Catherine decided to cover for her. I think that's very likely. Let's make a note of that. Is Catherine telling the truth? Sounds like Flora was trying to get smuggled out, but didn't properly give herself air holes. in italics. God only knows. Flora adored Catherine, and they say they at least shared a wicked sense of humor. It was a prank, and she hadn't thought that Flora would have trouble getting it. Was Flora all right? She was beside herself for a day or two. And took it out on me, if you could believe it. Goodness! Catherine thought, or knew, I suppose, that she could get away with anything. Why did she confess so quickly, then? That's a good point. Why did she, Marta? You see, even in death, she can bargain her way out of scrutiny. She didn't admit anything because she felt ashamed. She admitted to it. She admitted it because she had already got away with it. Flora had been found safely. No harm was done in Catherine's eyes. Another lesson avoided. Off she went on her merry way with nothing but a minute's awkward conversation as penance. I think you're being a mite too harsh. You're making yourself sound really suspicious here right now, Marta. We also just learned that Marta used to fight a lot. Who would punish her? Not the Superior. Lord knows nobody would break the unspoken agreement to cut her out of our affairs that Catherine orchestrated. Would I punish her? I should have, but no. It was too late by then. I was already under her spell. Punishing her wouldn't have changed what happened to her. Would it not? I don't know. I don't believe in random chance. All flowers were seeds sown. I could have shaped her into someone great. Instead, I gave up trying. Catherine is my greatest failure. Marta believes she should have nipped it in the bud. Catherine's behavior in the bud. She wonders. Let's see. She muses that Catherine is her greatest failure. I know you don't mean all that. I know you miss her. I do. Despite it all, I do. Harriet had started getting glassy-eyed. Marta reached over to touch her plump wrists with her own bony fingers. No getting wistful in front of poor Hedwig. I'm sure she has better things to do than listen to two old bats whinge. Where are you off to, Hedwig? There's another chair around here somewhere. Behind you. Oh, I'm off to the library, actually. Marta's dark mood certainly hadn't sold the idea as the most appealing way I could imagine spending my morning. Chronicling can wait, surely. It's not like you're going to forget last night anytime soon, eh? In the end, I did not need much convincing. The longer I could put off running into Eustace, the better, even if Marta was feeling particularly sour. I brought the spare chair over and sat down for more conversation. The two women invite Hedwig to join them, which she does after a little bit of convincing. So, aside from last night's escapade in the Misericorde, what have you been doing? Very well, very well. Oops. I mean, there's a lot of things to get used to. But I am adjusting. Is there anything still confusing to you about the outside world? Oh, loads, I'm sure. But I'm carrying along. I did learn that there was a war going on. And that was quite a shock. Well, that whole thing feels like it's been going for most of my life. I guess that was the wrong one. That whole thing feels like it's been going for most of my life. It used to be a bit more of a worry, but these days it's exhausting to even think about. It was a little more concerning when... Good Lord, Hexam was well over 20 years now, wasn't it? In Hedgley. We were a little more worried when those were going on. A little bit closer to home, those were. You would have been here in 64, Hedwig. Just about, I think. Well, you as well. It's 1482, right? Yeah. I did not like talking about myself. Not far. I was at the abbey across the valley and down the hill. Gordon Grove. I moved around a lot in those days. We talked a little about the war, which is going on, and apparently has been for at least 20 years. Around 1464, Marta had been at a different abbey. Durham, Richmond, Ripon, Ripon, Riptide. What side of the war are we on? I wouldn't worry about that. It'd be hard-pressed to find any strong opinions on the war here, I'd reckon. They really knew how to throw a war back then. They're fighting over who gets to be king. That's well above my opinion. The church is above all these things. So yeah, this is the War of the Roses, right? When is the War of the Roses? I'm looking it up right now. Yeah, so it'll end in like 2 years or 3 years after this game, after the current events of this game. And it's been going on since 1455. The Lannisters and the Yorks. I think those were the two. Lannisters is the fucking Game of Thrones version. The Lancasters and the Yorks. The church is above all these things. These are petty, worldly squabbles in the end. Even though the royal bloodline is anointed by God. And maybe so, but men have found so many ways to bicker over the specifics of what God has said. Too right, too right. What about you, Charity? Have you always been here at Lynborough? For a long time, yes, but not forever. Got my start at Burngrove, actually, and followed Marta here when she transferred. We were too good of friends not to go together, isn't that right? Marta had a thin smile on her face. What a nice story, indeed. Have you been making many friends with girls your age? Girls. This felt like a patently ridiculous way to describe a group of women I assumed were mostly in their 20s and 30s. But perhaps I'll understand when I'm Marta's age. I worry I'm losing more than I'm making. I'm not sure that's true. I know for a fact Moira's quite taken with their presence. And Darcy, for that matter. And we don't invite just anyone to sit with us. That's right. Yes, Hedwig. And Charity had been there too. And followed Marta over. Yes, Hedwig about her, whatever. Let's see what they actually asked her. Okay. They ask Hedwig if she's making friends. Hedwig worries she's losing more than she's making. However, they believe, the two mention that Moira and Darcy are quite fond of her. I smiled and leaned back in my chair. It was hard to get comfortable when my body still felt completely out of shape. Well, thank you. I should probably get back to work. And that they don't just invite anybody to come sit with them. Godspeed. We're on your side. God bless her, but it was a mean thing Eustace did. I stood up slowly and offered Charity an appreciative smile as I left. Just how fast is Godspeed? It depends on the speed of light and also how fast God wants to go. There's a complicated equation. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I made my way upstairs, dreading what the rest of my morning was going to look like, with Eustace across the room from me. But it turned out she was not there. Either she'd finished her work while I had been dawdling, or she'd let her own discomfort get the better of her, and do what I wasn't strong enough to do and simply not show up. When Hedwig arrives at the library, Eustace is not there. I sighed and sat down at my desk. I opened the massive book I was filling with my daily chronicles, but I was unsure what to write. The amount of delicate pruning I would have to do made it difficult to know how to begin at all. Against my better judgment, I was not about to commit Catherine's sin to writing, and I didn't particularly want to immortalize my altercation with Eustace. Or did I? I considered that extolling these sins might take some of the weight from my shoulders. If I was not being entirely truthful to those around me, I could at least be truthful to myself and God. I was being changed in many ways outside my cell, but I did not want to become a liar. Unsure of what to write, Hedwig wonders if she should chronicle Eustace's prank. I was no liar, I told myself. I was no thief. I scratched my quill against the page idly as I debated myself in my own head. It was so quiet in the library that the sound seemed to fill the room. It didn't help me decide. As Charity had said, it wasn't like I was about to forget any of this. I closed the book and stood up. I at least had the wherewithal to recognize when no work was about to get done. Eustace still hadn't shown up. I looked toward the bookshelves, the ones that seemed to stretch on forever into the darkness. Without Eustace here, could I... No. Hurt as I was by a cruel game of dress-up, I had no intention of exacting any more revenge upon her. Slapping her was already beyond the pale. It was so beyond the pale, it was crimson. Breaking her library rules would be just petty, wouldn't it? I found myself in argument with my own reasoning again. There were books. They were just books. What right did she have to tell me what to do? Was I so cowed by her that I feared that what she might do if I touched her precious books? Set one of them out of order? Oh, hello. Darcy had shuffled into the library, carrying a long hooked staff that I could only assume was a shepherd's crook. Hello, Darcy. Can I help you? Well, actually, Eustace sent me. Ah. She's feeling under the weather and can't make it to the library today. As she fantasizes about getting petty revenge against Eustace by mixing up her books. As Hedwig fantasizes, Darcy shows up with a shepherd's crook, to inform Hedwig that Eustace is feeling a tad ill, is feeling under the weather, and won't be showing up today. That's quite alright, I understand. She suggested I take you with me to watch the sheep today. Instead, Eustace suggests Darcy take Hedwig out to see the sheep. Oh, well, I've work to do still, actually, but... don't worry about that. You can always do it tomorrow. I'm not always in charge of the sheep. You don't want to miss this. Hey! Come on. It's time for sheep. I couldn't say no to her. Especially after what Charity had said earlier. Oh, all right then. Darcy beamed and beckoned for me to follow her. We went down the stairs toward the cloister. Charity and Marta had left, presumably to go check in with the wine in the cellars. The sunlight was somewhat diminished. The fog was gone, but I could now see rain clouds gathering ahead. We took a right to the bottom of the stairs and continued past the rectory and kitchens. Be bad. It's a bit of a hike, if that's all right. How is it? I'm quite stiff today, I'm afraid. Have you been to the hospitalum? It's more or less the same distance, but this direction. No, I haven't. More lies. But it was either that or explain to Darcy that I had sprinted from the hospitalum last night. What was that I said earlier about not being a liar, though? I'm sure I'll manage, though. We left through another archway in the surrounding wall. I was beginning to wonder what the point of the abbey wall was in the first place. Anyone, it seemed, could come from either direction if they fancied it. For a moment, I wondered if it was worth telling the Superior that it would be impossible to fairly accuse anyone of murdering Catherine when just about any old pervert could have walked into this place. Darcy had not been exaggerating about the walk. On this side of the abbey, there was no gentle slopes and hillocks. There was more hills, and for the first time it truly struck me that Linborough Tor was more or less a mountain range. As we made our way over impossibly green grass, wind whipped our robes around. I think Darcy may have been trying to chat, but it was impossible to hear anything clearly over the gusts of wind and flapping fabric. It was truly dizzying up here. I could see the village and the lake, as I did on the way to the hospitalum, but they were utterly dwarfed by the hills surrounding them. It was beautiful and terrifying. It never felt so small. Eventually we crested on a particularly sharp incline and paused for a breather. Hands on my knees, I doubled over to catch my breath. I noticed a smattering of little white dots against the dark green grass of the slope across from us. A lot of sheep. Look at them sheeple. There they are. We pressed onward. Eventually the hills smoothed out to a more manageable degree. By the time we approached the grazing sheep, the land was practically flat, as if it were on a tiny shelf on the side of the hill. Meadow maggots. Alright then. This is my favorite job. You have so many responsibilities. How do you manage? It's a distance away. Roughly the same as to the hospitalum, but in a different direction. Over steep hills. Well, that's true. But to me, this is hardly a responsibility. Just look at them. He gestured toward the sheep, who had all turned to look at us. Hey, Daisy, how's it going? Welcome in, welcome in. A bit scary. What? I've never seen any. He's so affronted. He was like, what do you mean scary? These are the best things in the world. How could you call them scary? I've never seen an animal up close, and there's so many of them. They are sheep. They're nice. Look, that one already likes you. She pointed behind me with her crook. I turned around and yelped. One of the sheep was standing right next to me, looking up at me, while continuing to munch on grass. You can touch them if you like. No, I shan't be doing that. Give it a try. One of the sheep had approached her, and she was patting it on the head gently. I wouldn't say the creature appeared to be enjoying it, but at the very least it wasn't attacking Darcy over it. Fresh none. I held my breath and reached a hand out to touch the sheep closest to me. Hello? I rubbed the top of its head. It didn't really seem to care one way or the other, but I hadn't lost any fingers. So, what do we do? Yes? We just stand out here. Yes. I just want to make sure nothing attacks them or eats them. What would do that up here? Wolves. The word sent a chill up my spine. That's terrifying. It would be, but not many wolves around here anymore. I've not seen a wolf in a very long time. And just from afar at that. That's comforting. Hedwig is rather nervous around animals. Except for the cat, apparently. She was very willing to just, like, go, interact with that cat. She's a cat woman, apparently. I'm gonna take a drink. Darcy tells her that they are here to keep the sheep from getting hurt, particularly by wolves, of which there are not many any longer. It was not comforting at all. Knowing my luck, I felt we were doomed to be torn to ribbons by the first pack of wolves Darcy had ever seen up close. Just enjoy them and get some of this lovely fresh air. We were sheltered from the wind on this side of the hill, and the air was cool and damp. The rain clouds, however, still threatened above us. In fact, as soon as Darcy had finished encouraging me to take in the fresh air... Wow! Would you look at that? Couldn't help but laugh. Yes, just our luck. Just our luck. To be honest, I quite like the rain. First time you blink 1,000 wolves. Alright, let's see. It begins to rain. What is this music? Why is it like this? Creature Junction. I don't remember the last time I had been outside in the rain. In my cell, I had always left the window hatch open a crack when it began to rain, just to catch a bit of the fresh scent that followed. Sometimes I would stick my hand out just to get my hand wet, just to feel something curious and different. I felt so thankful every time I caught a few raindrops in my palm, just to be alive. Or whenever I felt a sunbeam hit my back, hunched over my writing desk. Or when I would catch a fleck of snow and watch it melt into the creases of my skin. That had been enough. It had always been enough for me. I'd never wanted to leave. I would have been happy for my whole life in that little room as I could see the rain outside my window. As long as I could see the rain outside my window. I was glad it was raining. I did not want to have to explain the tears rolling down my cheeks to Darcy. I like the rain too. Finally, someone else who agrees. Now let's get these beasties out of the rain, shall we? Distant Darcy. You know what? Let's take another screenshot, except without the cross in the middle of the screen. Darcy began to shoo the sheep around her with a staff. They pointed at a rickety wooden structure near the slope of the hill. Try and get them over there. I had no idea what to do, especially without a crook of my own. I sort of gestured at the sheep around me, I suppose. Maybe politeness would serve me, where physicality couldn't. Come along, please. Thankfully, it seemed the flock didn't need me to tell them what to do. Most of the sheep were trotting toward Darcy's structure of their own accord. A few stayed huddled in front of me. I wonder if they were pretending to be herded for my benefit. Cute sheep. After discussion about how an exchange, I guess it's more of an exchange, about how both of them like the rain, Darcy and Hedwig start to herd the sheep. They start to herd the sheep into a building. I guess a shelter. I made it under the wooden shelter just as it started pouring. Darcy was leaning against a crook, surveying the hills in front of us with a serene expression. I navigated through several nonplussed sheep to stand next to her. Good work. So have you been coming out here every day? Oh, goodness, no. I like to do it, but I am very busy. Maura does it sometimes, and also I think Margaret. Catherine would as well. Ah, Catherine? That's hard to imagine. Catherine II. Ah. They aren't strictly our sheep, strictly speaking. Or they aren't our sheep, strictly speaking. We just like to volunteer, but they are from the village. This is just where they come for transhumans. What's that? Well, you have to rotate where sheep graze depending on the time of year. Normally that man James would handle most of the shepherding up here, but, well, you know. Oh, he's the accused, yes? Yes. How horrible. There was a pregnant pause, and it gave birth to more talking. Sheep are owned by the folks in the village, by the village. Although the nuns help out, namely Darcy, Margaret, Moira, and Catherine. Normally James Foreman helping out as well. Do you think he did kill her? Couldn't say. Angela found him trying to run for the abbey and his cloak was covered in blood. I found it. Did you know that? I didn't even know anything about it happened. I was busy putting out a fire in the dormitory and only noticed the cart in the distance out of the window. On James Foreman, Darcy mentions that she found the cloak. She was putting out a fire. Why was there a fire in the dormitory? What is that? She was putting out, like, was she putting out a fire that was a normal fire, or was it like a fire that someone had set that was abnormal? I saw his cart outside. A fire! This was the first I'd heard about this detail. Yes. Someone had put too much fuel in the fireplace and it was blowing embers about. The fire was caused by someone putting too much fuel in the fireplace. Alright, so that's definitely suspicious. More of a nuisance than a danger, but it was getting out of hand. Anyway, all the evidence points to James being a little bastard, but strange things happen around here. I'm wary of how simple it all seems. Like people dressing up as ghosts, you mean? This slipped out before I could register how barbed it sounded. Eustace was Darcy's close friend, and I realized any story Darcy had been told about last night would have been from Eustace's bespectacled perspective. Eustace likes to add fuels to fires. She is the only person we know of so far that has been messing with fire. I was relieved then when Darcy let out a guttural chuckle. What am I going to do with you two? Is she very upset? She told me all about it and it sounded very sad. I told her, well, it did sound like what you did was a bit cruel, and then she got mad and went to sleep. Eustace really went, you ever hear it takes so bad you have to go to you go to sleep? She'll be fine, I think. Give it a few days. A few days? Maybe a week, can't say for sure. Is that normal? Oh, you're not used to people being angry with you. I'm starting to worry that I have to get used to it very quickly. Eustace gets angry very easily. I really would not put too much thought into it. She and Adela avoided each other for a month because Eustace said sherry tasted like trough water. And Adela said, well, how do you know what trough water tastes? And a few days later, Adela said that some of the beer we had at luncheon tasted like piss. And Eustace was ready with, well, how do you know what piss tastes like? Catherine made them have a sword fight over it. What the fuck is this? On the topic of Eustace and Hedwig's little spat, Darcy mentions that Eustace will take a little bit to get over it. Then she brings up an anecdote about Eustace, Adela, and the taste of piss and trough water, which apparently ended with Catherine making them have a sword fight. So Catherine seems really cool. Oh, wait, hold on. With the wooden swords. Oh, even still. Yes, Catherine was a bit obsessed with them. She's a sword girl! She tried to train all of us up with swords at one point. Catherine's obsession with swords extended enough to attempt to train all the girls as swordsmen. I guess all the women as swordsmen. This girl is so strange. Swordswomen. Sword women. However one might say it. How would you do that? Well, as I'm sure you may have noticed, there are not many of us here. Yes. And you know there's a war going on. I had heard that. Well, Catherine wanted us all to be able to defend ourselves, I suppose. Just in case. Well, that's rather extreme. That's what the Superior said when she found out about it. I've heard a lot of stories about Catherine's interests, but I still would have never guessed that one. I think it made a certain amount of sense. It was fun, but it made me a bit uncomfortable when I thought about it longer. I much preferred it when she was really into winemaking. Or sailing. Winemaking? Goodness, I take it Marta wasn't pleased with that. On the contrary, Marta was thrilled that someone was interested in it as interested in it as her. As far as I know, Marta taught Catherine everything she knew, and that got Catherine reading about more techniques and so on in the library, and then would tell Marta about that new stuff. But then one day it just stopped, I suppose. Stopped. I think with Catherine. Alright. Catherine got, or switched obsessions a lot, apparently. Before swords, it was sailing and winemaking. Catherine learned all about winemaking from Marta, then learned more from books, which she relayed to Marta. Darcy trailed off in an uncharacteristic manner that surprised me just as much as a sudden yelp would have. Catherine was unbelievably smart, but nothing ever satisfied her. She would become intensely passionate about a subject or idea for several days, or weeks, or months, and then it would change completely. Catherine loved many things aggressively, but it was always one thing at a time. If it was something similar to my interests, I was her best friend. If it wasn't, I felt like I barely knew her. I don't think I'm alone in that assessment. I miss her, but sometimes I think she was a bad friend. Darcy thinks about how Catherine, how if you shared an interest, shared Catherine's current interest, you'd be her best friend. But if not, she was like a different person, like a stranger. She might have been a bit bad friend. Not everyone will admit. I think a lot of us feel that we were at some point jilted by our random interests. One day you are the center of her attention, and the next day she's off somewhere else, lavishing someone else with the care you thought was just for you. She sounds like she had a lot of love to give. She did, that is true. But she would give so intensely, I cannot blame anyone for feeling. Hard to choose a word here. Jealous? Jealous sounds so romantic. I think Catherine often gave people a sense of purpose, and then when she got bored or found a new subject to obsess over, that new outlook on life evaporated. Imagine being told you were actually destined to be a queen by someone who starts teaching you etiquette and explaining how to do diplomacy to you. Then one day they're telling someone else the same story. Catherine liked to get us to plan for futures where we were musicians or knights or prophets, but at the end of the day it was always pure imagination. She would have made a great poet, I think. I am rubbish at poetry. Was anyone particularly put off by this? It's the first I've really heard about her habits being so controversial. I don't know. Some people minded and some minded less. Margaret was a bit stung when she started spending more time on theatre than music, I think. And Angela had a big falling out with her, but I suppose that's not a big surprise. I was never bothered by it that deeply. It just made me a little sad sometimes. We were attached at the hip for a little while, but then one day she started spending more time with Margaret and Moira. I don't know if there's any point in... I guess I should mention the ones who felt worse about things. Alright. Let's see. Others had various reactions. Margaret was a bit stung. When Catherine moved onto music. Angela had a falling out. Darcy would just get a little sad. Yeah, it does seem like the romantic analogy was actually a little more on the nose than it sounds. She's playing the field like she plays her instruments. That is okay. She was a savant, but I have my areas of expertise, and I am quite happy with them. As well, you should be. Your work in the garden is hard to put into words. Darcy beamed. And you seem to have a connection to good that I can only hope to achieve a fraction of. I saw you in the garden that day when Eustace was chronicling your vision. Wondrous. Oh, that. You know, it's interesting. That is exactly what Catherine said to me when we were close. You two spoke about visions. Yes, you had them too. She wanted to compare them and examine them. Alright! Darcy mentions that Catherine also had visions, and the two would compare. We started working on tinctures together to try and enhance them. Then one day she just stopped having visions. No, I don't think so. In fact, I remember having quite a vivid one. That is what Eustace told me, at least. Like I said, Catherine started spending much less time with me all of a sudden. Did you know what you saw? Darcy shook her head and leaned on a crook. She looked a little weary. I barely remember my own visions if Eustace isn't there to write them down. I'm not sure anyone was with Catherine when she had the big one. Whatever it was affected her deeply. So deeply I never wanted to question it. Until suddenly, Catherine stopped. However, she still kept having visions. Including one particularly large one that... after which she started acting differently. Darcy doesn't know the contents of this vision, however. At the time, I was worried I'd upset her. I took her to a dark place, I think, whatever it was she saw. How horrible! I watched the raindrops fall in silent for a moment. An impatient sheep nudged my thigh. You know, it's funny. The vision I saw you have, it was completely true. True in what sense? Well, a lot of it sounded like nonsense at first. But you started on fire goat right before you came back to us. Is that so? Yes, and that evening I saw, well... Yes, this is a little joke. Oh, by the way, I take it from the sound of things that my little concoction worked. Yep. Oh, yes! I suddenly remember the little potion I had down before heading to the Misericorde. Oh dear, did I drink too much of it? I ended up finishing all of it before the evening started. Do you think that's why I... smacked Eustace? No, I think the wine had probably taken over at that point. She looked over at me and offered a sympathetic smile. The rain was beginning to slow. Eustace will come around. I hope so. We two have to work together. You'd always try apologizing first. Would that help? I wanted to last night, but... maybe I should just leave her be. No right answer here. Do whatever feels right to you. I'll try. We urged the flock back into the field once the rain cleared. The rest of our time there was spent in silence. I could occasionally hear Darcy cooing to one of the sheep, but for the most part all I could hear was the wind in my own thoughts. I'd heard so many things about Catherine now that I felt I should have. A complete idea of who she was. Hold on. I gotta do something real quick. What happened here? That is freaking weird. YouTube's got a weird auto-translate thing going on. Is it YouTube that has it? That's... Huh? Why is it auto-translating? Don't auto-translate. What are you doing? For some reason, it translated my name as Much. I'm confused. I don't know what that's about. There were people in the Bible who I had less information about, who I could nonetheless picture perfectly. What would they say if I asked them certain questions, how they would react to different situations? But every time I felt I was getting closer to knowing Catherine, my image of her was disturbed. By the way, I want to really quickly visit the title. Who is this, I wonder? Is this our character? The two characters we don't know what they look like are Hedwig and Catherine. She's holding the sword. There's like a trickle of blood running down here. And she's crying. Curious. It was as if I was staring into a reflection in a pond, where the surface was being pelted with pebbles. Hetty does cry a lot, it's true. Hedwig is a bit crybaby. A sense of loss I had felt when the Superior had told me the news. The desire for justice I had felt that kept me going after breaking my perpetual vow. Were these feelings based on a lie? Had I simply had the luck of being Catherine's newest obsession before she was taken from me? Could I even consider her taken from me? I thought about the copy of Medea hid in my bedroom. What had Catherine's plan for me been? What else could she have told me to make me feel special? Would her visits to the Squint have suddenly ended one day, even if she hadn't died? I was feeling undeniably sour when it was time to leave. Capricious lady she is. This Catherine. We crawled the sheep back into the barn, and then we hiked back to the Abbey in silence. I considered asking Darcy about her visions again. Asking Eustace to see her notes had been a dead end, and I was wickedly entertained by the idea of stepping over her to get what I wanted. But Darcy is not going to remember anything, come on. A form of retaliation less violent and far more productive than a smack on the cheek. I thought better of it in the end. Thank you for your help, Hedwig. Oh, you're welcome. It was a nice change. Glad to hear it. She smiled and clasped her hands together. I had no idea how she could have any energy left to work, but I could scarcely finish my goodbye to her before she had fluttered off in the direction of the kitchen. Supper that evening was a quiet affair. Nearly everyone seemed exhausted. I remembered that I was not the only one who hadn't gotten much sleep last night. Eustace did not look at me once during the entire meal. A small part of me hoped that she was going to disappear and return with pudding, like she had the first time we had dined together, and reveal that her anger had been a front this whole time. The nuns trickled out one by one. I got up and stretched. I still feel incredibly stiff, and I realized that hiking out to the sheep and staying on my feet all day was not helping my recovery from last night's marathon. At the very least, I hadn't vomited and passed out today. Margaret and Flora were waiting for me when I left the rectory. Oh, hello. Hello, Hedwig. Was that dinner or was that luncheon? Supper. It was supper, alright. After supper, Hedwig meets Laura and Margaret. Flora has a question for you. Hey Mario, how's it going? That's a nice 80 streams consecutive. That's a lot. I didn't create the wall. The wall was there before me. The wall is eternal. The wall is and ever shall be. I'm not 5, you know. I was gonna ask anyway. Is something wrong? No, just last night. Did you mean what you said when you teach me how to paint? I think she means, would you be free to teach me how to paint, please? Sure. That. I must admit I had already forgotten this promise. Laura, sort of, asks to, asks Hedwig to teach her how to paint. Let's just write it like that. I felt bad. Even under duress, I shouldn't have made a commitment I could ignore so easily, just to make Flora feel better. I had absolutely no business teaching anyone to draw, and I desperately wanted to say no. However... Yes, of course! Where would be a good place to meet? I don't know. The library. I thought about the clutter of desks in the library. How about we just do it back in the rectory here? There's a nice big table in there. Sure. Let's meet back here in a few minutes. I need to go and get my supplies. Flora nodded and skulked off in the direction of the dorms. I hadn't thought about it, but I was going to need to access my old cell. All of my illumination supplies, brushes, paints, inks were still in there. My heart sank. I started walking toward the Superior's office. I would need her key. Margaret followed. Thank you, Hedwig. I was worried for a minute that we were going to look like real blackguards. Blackguards is such a funny word. Alright. Hedwig agrees. Then goes off to get her supplies in her old cell, which requires seeing Mother Superior. I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for asking. Hope you're doing well in the walls. The walls well. The walls are treating you well. I must admit, I'd forgotten all about it, but I'm happy to help. I'd forgotten all about it, but I'm happy to help. Likewise, she was hanging around me all morning, and I was struggling to remember why. Then I remembered that we'd all had a little heart-to-heart last night. Oh my! Did you forget all about what happened? Oh no. How could I? Ah! Some details just took precedence over others. Right! She grinned. I should go check in on the cellars and make sure Adela and Marta haven't killed each other. See, talk to you later, Hedwig. She broke from me at the staircase down to the cellars. I continued to the Superior's door and gave it a little knock. Oh, Sister Hedwig. Is something wrong? Not at all. Well, I need you to unlock my cell. Whatever for. It's a long story, but I promised Sister Flora that I'd teach her about illuminating manuscripts, and I only just remembered that all of my tools and paint are still in there. Flora taking an interest in something. Goodness, I can't let this opportunity go to waste. Give me just a moment. The door closed. Shortly after, it swung open again, and the Superior emerged carrying her ring of keys. The unmistakable jingle sent a shiver up my spine. We took the stairs up to the second floor, and continued down the hall. A huge door that had slammed and scared the sisters all witness was to my left. The wind was shaking it gently, as gently as something that big could shake at the very least. The walls around us seemed to pulse and vibrate as the door beat against its frame, as if it were in some great behemoth's lungs. As we turned to the right, I remember the hideous carving Margaret had shown me with a jolt. Perhaps we really were in the presence of some monstrous creature. I thought about warning the Superior about the evil magic circle I had seen, but I could find neither the words nor the courage to bring it up. It was so dark down here. I realized just how out of the way the sisters would have had to come to seek my advice as anchoress. We stopped at the door. I stared at the hagioscope as the Superior looked for the right key. It was a bizarre device. I had never really looked at it from the outside, but it looked rather cobbled together. The metal frame was wedged into the stone brick, and the little door looked ready to rust right off its hinges. I opened it idly and took a peek inside. My heart sank as I realized it was impossible to see into the cell from this side. There was no way that Catherine and I would have been able to see each other. The hole in the wall was big enough to pass the books I had needed for transcribing through one at a time, but there was a bend in the middle that prevented direct access. It made me realize just how thick these stone walls were, how isolated I had truly been. I spoke into the hatch. Hello? Feeling nostalgic? Now here we are. She selected the key and inserted it into the door. What are we gonna find in here? We're gonna find something weird, aren't we? There's something's gonna happen. It is gonna be weird. Oh. The door lurched open. Oh, how embarrassing. What happened? Nothing. Just forgot which way some of the doors opened here. She stepped inside. With great trepidation, I followed. It was just as it had been left. I took a deep breath. Felt lightheaded. I went to the shelf and procured a wooden box from the bottom. I could hear the ink bottles rattling inside. This is all I needed. Thank you. Very well. Shall we? I nodded. I didn't want to spend any longer in this place. I was not sure exactly how close the evil symbol was to my cell, but I wanted to put as much distance between it and myself as possible. I turned around and froze. There was something on my bed that should not be there. What a cliffhanger we're leaving this at. Alright, the superior takes her to the cell, where Hedwig grabs the paints. But then she wants to get out as quickly as possible. Get away from the symbol, the carving on the other side of the wall in the hidden passage. And that's it for today. Bye! Spots something on the bed that should not be there. The half-finished copy of Matthew was sitting there. The half-finished copy of Matthew that she threw out the window. Uh-oh, how to get back in here? Maybe she just dreamed about throwing it out the window. Spotted something else you need? No, just... That isn't where I left this. The book. Are you sure? I'm positive. You must be mistaken. I have the only key for this room. Perhaps you were reading it when Catherine came to collect you and forgot to put it back. That is not possible. I picked up the book and placed it on the top of the box I was carrying. What is it? It was the last book I was writing before, well... I see. Goodness, it's in rough shape. It looks as if it wasn't properly covered in the cart ride up to the Abbey. James's actual crime may have been negligence. Nonetheless, I understand it must have some sentimental value. May I take it? Don't see why not. You take anything from here as far as I'm concerned. See no reason why this room should be locked at all anymore, to tell you the truth. I noted. I wasn't about to explain that this book appearing on my bed felt like some sort of supernatural threat. At the very least, unfettered access to my old books was a happy outcome. If I could have a brave coming back here again, that is. She does not tell the superior why, she tells the superior the book shouldn't be there, but does not explain why. Regardless, the superior notes that Hedwig can take anything she wants from the cell, and that they won't be needing to lock it up anyway. We left the room and traveled back along the halls. The superior left to return to her office, no doubt swamped with clerical work. Clerical work? For the clergy? Wow. How unusual. I stopped off by the dormitory to deposit the bedraggled books in my new sleeping quarters, the bed-raggled books, because it was on a bed. Did Cat have the key when she fetched Teddy? Or did Soup come back to lock up later? That's true. Cat did, have the key to unlock... Did she? I don't remember. The way I wrote it down, Catherine only picked her up. Pretty sure. Not who unlocked the door. I'm writing a novel here. Yeah, I just say picked her up. That would have been an important detail. Flora looks like highly irritated when I finally made it back to the rectory. I had been worrying about the book, my cell, and that vile sigil all the way there, but my fear was quickly pushed out of my mind by Flora's verbal assault. You said you'd be a few minutes. Sorry, I just had to get the superior to help me unlock the door to my old cell. I lifted up the books of supplies and rattled it gently. Oh, fair enough. I brought some parchment. Oh, good! I would have been very embarrassed if I'd had to make another trip. Flora shrugged and hopped up the stairs to the door. Now, what's this section now? Who is Catherine? Where does it do this? She had laid out 2 small piles of simple paper. I set the books down between them and began unloading my supplies, inks, gold paint, and a few horsehair brushes. I pulled a chair out and sat down. Flora followed suit. So, where do we start? That's what I was going to ask you. Well, what's a moment from the Bible you'd like to try illuminating? I always liked doing the Annunciation. That might be a little advanced for me. Oh, well, how about a letter? Just one letter. That's going a bit far in the other direction, don't you think? Not at all. There's a lot you can do with just one letter. Huh. Okay then. Hedwig meets up with Flora to begin teaching. What letter would be good to start with? I suppose T is always useful. Or A. Flora snickered. Sure. Let's go with A then. You don't sound particularly enthused. It's a letter. I rummaged around in my books of supplies and produced 2 hardened charcoal stubs. I handed one to Flora, who raised her eyebrows. Where'd you get these? You know, I'm not sure. They got passed to me through the squint whenever I got new supplies. They're much nicer than the ones I usually have. I didn't know what to say to this, so I plowed ahead. I took one of the pieces of paper and began to sketch out a square in the top left corner. The paper was rougher and thinner than the parchment I was typically used to. I only held paper a few times and never marked it. That's not an A. But putting a square down so we know where to fit the letter. Oh. She took the stick of charcoal and hastily drew a square. It was a bit squiggly. Alright. Now, what I would do is... I wasn't really sure how to verbally describe my process, so instead I began to draw. In a quick swoop, I outlined a large A in my square that touched all the edges of the square, but left plenty of room for artistic embellishment. Flora squinted at my page, and then attempted to follow suit. That's a good start. Now what? Well, typically I'll ink the letter first and let it set. I don't do too much detail work with the charcoal, it's a bit too thick for that. I peered into my supply books, wiggling my fingers. What color would you like your letter to be? Red? Blue? Why are you talking to me like I'm a weird baby? A weird baby. Am I? Yes. You know I'm almost 20, right? You don't need to do this performance for everything. I think this is just Hedwig, Flora. I think this is just how Hedwig acts. I wasn't aware that I was performing. Right, I'd forgotten how good Flora was at getting under my skin. My empathy toward her outburst in the Misericorde had overridden my usual distaste for attitude. Just talk to me normally. This is how I talk to people normally. Come off it. Everything you say is a question, even if you're not actually asking anything. Is that how I come across? We glared at each other for a moment. Flora eventually started giggling. Just like that. Oh! I laughed too. Couldn't help it. Happily, the tension seemed to have been released. There's a bit of tension at first. Flora accuses Hedwig of treating her like some kind of weird baby. With asking too many questions. But that breaks the ice a bit. Clears the air. I guess that is how you normally speak. You know, I haven't spoken to many people face to face. Yeah. That makes sense. Feel a bit of an asshole now. That's quite alright. Red or blue? Blue. I passed her the blue and took the red one for myself and laid out 2 inkwells from the books. And then we started playing Pokemon. I popped the lid of mine open, then procured 2 brushes. Laura was struggling to pull the cork out of the whole bottle of blue ink. Be careful opening that, it's... She had managed to get the cork out, but in doing so, had jostled the bottle forward forcefully. A splash of blue ink landed on a sheet of paper. Here, let me... I reached over and picked a page up, curling it and shaking it to attempt to get some of the ink back into the bottle on the table. I was moderately successful, but there was a blue streak left on the paper. Sorry. It's not a problem. Just be careful, ink is quite valuable. I said I was sorry. I put some of my red ink into a well, then dipped a brush in. Try and follow the lines with as few strokes as possible. That way it dries without a messy looking texture. I tried to demonstrate, but the paper was soaking up more of my ink than I was used to, rendering this lesson a little moot. I forced ahead anyway, till I had a satisfactory letter A on my page. Flora had been peering over my shoulder as I drew and left a try on her own page once I'd finished. She immediately put too much ink on her brush, and the beginning of her first line became a messy blob as a result. I could tell she was rushing this part, but didn't want to frustrate her any further. Not bad. Shall we do some detailing with the gold paint? I could immediately sense Flora perking up. I uncooked the gold and chose a very thin brush. I like to make little patterns, and you can cheat a bit if you focus on drawing on one half like this. You can just copy it on the other side. She's just like drawing it over like over everything. This doesn't look like a T anymore. I'm still drawing 2 very detailed things. I don't think that's much of a cheat. Just give it a try. Oh yeah, that's right, it's an A. It's supposed to be an A. How do you do that, though? Oh, those just random lines. I think of them as vines. Huh. Makes sense, I guess. I'm pretty sure that's what those are actually called, by the way. Vines, or something like that. It's a good start. Keep filling it in. I watched her fill her square with gold lines. No patterns ever really came together. I could tell that she wasn't enjoying herself. I tried to avoid staring. I knew that I wouldn't appreciate having my shoulder looked over in my cell, and Flora was liable to bite my head off if I did anything that could be interpreted as condescending. Flora's a wolf, actually, it turns out. Ugh. So, were you interested in art? I know. Did Catherine draw much? A bit. And she was going to teach you at one point before. Yep. What sort of things did she paint? Lots. Anything you particularly liked? Sure. Oh, Flora. There's this one she showed me that I really liked. Oh? Yeah, it was her holding some guy's head. What? That's so awesome. Jesus Christ. Flora doesn't seem to be enjoying drawing letters much, though. Hedwig asks what sort of things Catherine liked to draw. Flora mentions that once she drew herself, that once Catherine drew herself holding a man's head. What is this? What's going on? It was so awesome. Whose head was it? Oh dear. Goodness. It was probably Holofernes though. I breathed a little internal sigh of relief. Of course. Do you like that story? Yeah, it's awesome. Judith is a very interesting book. Have you read the whole thing? Not just the gory parts. Laura, please. You tomboy. I resist the urge to bang my own head against the table. But you know the general thrust of it, yes? Yeah, she pretends to be friends with Holofernes and cuts his head off. Do you know why she cuts his head off? He was a bit of an asshole. How's your drawing coming along? I could hear that my voice was a bit pitchier than normal. Flora leaned back in her chair and gestured at her paper. That's a great first attempt. I can't even see the gold. How's it going? It was sloppy, but earnestly, it wasn't so bad. I was certain I'd done worse when I first started out. Still feels a bit empty. You could add something to one of the corners, maybe. Like what? What about a crucifix? Boring. The crucifix is not boring. It's 2 lines. So I'm not being blasphemous, I just mean, you know, it's not an exciting drawing. I don't know then. A bird? Or a cat? Oh, that's a fine idea. A severed head. Flora leaned forward in her seat again, looking very engaged all of a sudden. Yeah, can you draw a cat? I don't think I've ever tried. How about we both try one separate from the illuminated letters and compare? Sure. We both started sketching with charcoal on our own papers. I tried to remember what cats looked like. Found them cute despite their reputations. I soon realized that I only ever seen the one scampering out of the kitchen. Oh, is the cat hers? I don't know. She might be taking care of it, though. I actually don't know if I've ever seen a cat up close, now that I think about it. Really? Really, I just know of them mostly. There are lions and leopards and so on in the Bible, but you never saw one before you became a nun. That was so long ago, I could scarcely remember if I had. So you weren't born here, then? No? Where did you come from, then? Trier. Hedwig von Trier? Oh, I would have never guessed from your accent. You sound very English. I have been here most of my life. Yeah, but you're twice as old as I am. Some people's accents stick even when they move. The two begin to draw cat to see who can do it better. As they do. The, Flora asks where Hedwig is from. And Hedwig says Trier. So the way Flora said that, sounds like that's in Germany. Because she said von Trier, so I'm guessing it's Germany. But let's look it up. Trier, Wikipedia. Nope, it's from, it's a city on the bank of Moselle in Germany. Luxembourgish. So it's Trier. Which surprises Flora. Because Hedwig sounds, English as heck. Like a Jedi. Moira and Catherine, too. Oh? What's Catherine's accent, I wonder? Was she French? First of all, I'm not that much older than you. Do you remember much from before you moved? How long ago was it? Almost 20 years ago. Wow. So you're in there as long as I've been alive. Yes! So you were like 20 before you moved and still lost your accent. I would have been about 5 or 6, thank you very much. Oh. Well, 7, 8 or 9 maybe? 8 or 9! It would have been funny if you brought that accent back for a day or two. Just to confuse everyone for a bit. Hello, my name is Hedvig. Something like that. I smacked my charcoal down on the table in exasperation. My cat drawing as finished as it was ever going to get. Let's compare our drawings now, shall we? That's not what a cat looks like. I keep having my mouse on the page. I tried my best. Is that what a cat looks like? Closer than yours. Yours is a very human face. This isn't a human face, Flora? So does yours! Whatever. Cat's eyes don't look like that. Is that so? No, I think so, at least. I never sit still long enough for people to draw them. Yeah, it's definitely Flora's cat. Flora, do you know something about the cat Angela's been chasing for weeks? Look, you have to promise not to tell anyone. Honestly felt relieved. Compared to the secrets I was keeping for Catherine, the Superior, and myself, Flora's request was positively quaint. Of course, it's just a cat. Yes, but nearly everyone else here hates cats. I have to pretend they're vermin too, but he's such a sweet little thing. He? Oh, the cat. His name's Campy. Campy. They compare cats, and none of them look particularly great. Neither of them. However, Flora accidentally lets on that the cat, that she has some business with the cat. She's the one who's been keeping it. And Hedwig inquires. And Flora admits she's the one who has been keeping it. She's named it Campy. That's unique. Catherine picked it. Oh. Catherine named it Campy. Perhaps I was wrong about the simplicity of this premise, if I was tacitly protecting a dead woman's secret as well. They never get off my lap long enough to try. Full name's Campignon? Campignon or something like that? She fancied classical sounding names a lot. So the cat was hers. Yeah, I guess. Don't know if you could really call him anyone's cat. He just showed up one day, and took a liking to Catherine, and she gave him a name and fed him scraps and stuff. And now he's your charge. Yep. That's sweet. I meant it when I said I need you to promise not to tell anyone. Some of the lot are likely to give Campy a swift kick if he gets too close. Be in so much trouble if anyone found out. But don't worry, I can keep a secret. Thanks. She looked the way she said this, but in her face showed not even a hint of a smile. But I still felt good. I felt like I'd made a real connection. Must be nice to have something to remember Catherine by. Well, shall we finish for now? I guess. Should we plan on meeting up again for more practice soon? She shrugged and glanced at her papers. Maybe. And here, take these. I handed her the stick of charcoal. For practicing on your own, since you like to draw. Alright. Maybe I hadn't made as real a connection as I'd hoped. She's just a teenager, or I guess she's almost not a teenager anymore, but she's close enough. She's fine. It'll be fine. And just let me know if you ever want another lesson. We can plan for it. Sure. She scooped up her drawing and stuffed it into her robe and got up to leave without pushing her chair back in. Bye, Hedwig. Yeah, she's definitely, you got closer. She's doing this, you got closer. Have a good evening, Flora. I was left alone to pack my supplies up. I had to resist snapping one of my brushes in half. She'll be coloring her eyes with that charcoal. I feel like I should... I don't know if this is like a painting or if this is just like a background that has been turned... It's like all the others have been like paintings and stuff though, so... I was completely exhausted by the time I made it to the dormitory. The relatively light art supply books weighed heavy like a millstone going up the stairs. I practically slammed it under my desk as soon as I made it to my room. An early night was the only thing I could think about. Alright, let's make a mention of that. The learning session ends. And Hedwig gives Flora a stick of charcoal to practice with. Although Hedwig is unsure if they got any closer at all. An early night was the only thing I could think about. I got into my night clothes as fast as I could, as if I was trying to prove to myself that I indeed intended to follow through on the idea. Hedwig sets herself up for another midnight prank, right? My body was so stiff that even stripping out of my habit felt laborious. And when I bent down to pick my nightdress off the floor, I wondered if I even had the energy to stand up straight again. Just gonna crouch here on the floor all night. I groaned impolitely as I straightened out and let the clothes step over me. Never again in my life did I want to run a hike. I was ready to sleep. I almost didn't want to stream today. I wanted to just go back to sleep, take a nap, because I felt like I didn't feel like I got very good sleep or something. I don't know. Something like that. But we're here. We might end a little early though, depending on if we get a good stopping spot or not. However, as I ran my hands over the mattress in an attempt to straighten it out a little, I realized I'd forgotten something important. There was still a book on my bed. The copy of the Gospel of Matthew that I had dropped off in a hurry before returning to Flora. As ominous as it was, I was at least glad I hadn't smacked my head into it like I had with the copy of Medea currently under the bed. I opened the book. The cover was slightly damp, and some of the pages had fused together. I thumbed through carefully to the pages that had been opened when I had vomited all over it. The black file had faded, but it was obviously ruined. I was not sure what I was looking for, a clue perhaps, of who had returned it to myself, or how. Why'd she get up again? I don't remember. Oh. It's just not showing her room. Why is it showing outside here? As she gets ready for bed, Hedwig remembers that she left the copy of the Book of Matthew on her bed. She examines it. Perhaps some demon had magicked it there through this accursed sigil. Why exactly this devil's nefarious plan included returning books to rooms they'd been thrown out of, I had no immediate hypothesis. I turned to the page that I had been working on when my time in the cell had been interrupted, Matthew 5:37. As I studied the ruined pages and saw no hidden messages, no threats, my anxiety evaporated. I slammed the book shut and threw it onto the floor with a thud. It was obviously another of Eustace's pranks, I reasoned. The timing was certainly convenient after the threat her ghost had given me in the Misericorde. I scoffed aloud, with some small hope that she was somehow within earshot. Undoubtedly, if I hadn't knocked her onto her arse and unmasked her that night, this book would have been revealed to me at some portentous moment. She must have stored it in my cell to keep it out of view until whenever suited to her little plan. I could just see her casually asking the superior for the keys in that infuriatingly flat voice of hers. She probably said she needed something from my shelf for the library. I slammed my fist into my pillow and buried my face in the divot. This is funny. She's like, and then she's like, buries her face in it. She examines it, but finds nothing of note. She begins to suspect it's another prank of Eustace's, meant to be a follow-up to the threat. the threat from the figure. Then I remembered something. I pulled myself up on my knees and lifted my pillow. A strip of black cloth was there. Proof! I reached over the bed for my stocking and stuffed it inside. I couldn't wait to see the look on Eustace's face when I showed her that. If I could find a missing patch on her frock! I laid down, feeling satisfied. I imagined profuse apologies over and over, and I still went to sleep angry. Morning offices and luncheon passed in a blur the next day. I went through the motions, but my mind was elsewhere. I'd sleepwalked through several days when I'd been feeling morose. But today was different. There was a high-pitched whine between my eyes so intense that I had a headache by the end of service. I felt as light as a bee, and equally as prone to sting whoever bothered me. It was not all anger. Some of it, I realized as luncheon came to a close, was nervous anticipation. I kept glancing over at Eustace, who seemed, to my chagrin, completely unbothered. The superior was waiting for us outside of the rectory and we all left. She pointed at Eustace, Moira, and myself and beckoned for us to join her. Are you all ready for a little fun? Absolutely. Good. It's high time the women of this abbey made an appearance at Linbarrow Village. She hopes to confront Eustace about it. About the strip of cloth she found. The next day. Alright. Linbarrow Village. The next day, the superior arranges the trip to Linbarrow with Moira and Eustace. And I thought an adventure outside the Abbey would be an exciting little adventure for our newest... Well, not newest, but you know what I mean. Well, that's you. Me. Just a little treat. I was losing count of the lies I was having to go along with for the sake of this quest. Moira and Darcy worked hard yesterday to bake some fritters to share with the townsfolk. What is it that we're actually meant to do there? The superior shot me a quizzical look. Spread some cheer, of course. Attend the people's spiritual needs. Nothing heals the soul like a sweet treat. They're really good, too. If I do say so myself. Eustace had said nothing for the course of the entire conversation. She remained silent as the superior led us... It's... Every time I see the wrong lead, I'm just like, man, the spelling of lead really is just changing. Led us across the grounds to the front gate. A cart and donkey were waiting for us. There was a sturdy chest loaded into the wooden cart, and looked like one of us could have fit inside snugly. I've also seen a lot of paid with P-A-Y-E-D. That one at least is a more regular sounding change. It was full of sweet fritters. Darcy and Moira must have been very busy. They are to hand out sweet fritters made by Darcy and Moira. I had no idea we kept a mule here. We do not. Typically, we have to send word to have one delivered from the village if we need to travel, but this one has remained here ever since the incident. So it's been weeks since this mule was here? Oh. Ah, this was the donkey and cart that James had been driving in when he was last free. Just how many animals was Darcy technically responsible for at this point? They head off using the cart and mule that had been left behind, or that had been in James's care, which had since had been here since the incident. Moira stepped into the driver's seat of the car, leaving me and Eustace facing each other in the back. The superior looked uncharacteristically amused at the sight of us loaded into the vehicle. My girls, off on a diplomatic mission together. Had I the means, I would commission a painting. Haven't been down to the village in months at least. This is going to be a riot. Hit the reins and the cart wobbled forward. Poor James will have to Uber back once he's freed. Maybe he'll use a lift. Moira turned to wave the superior. Eustace and I followed suit, although we were both less enthusiastic than Moira. Miss Foley. The superior disappeared behind the road as it began to curve downward. I looked ahead and suddenly felt a wave of panic as I realized just how long the winding path down the mountain was and how far afield I was about to find myself. Stuck in a cart with someone I'd rather never speak to again, no less. Oh god, we're moving at breakneck speed! We're moving at God speed. So this must be new for you. I suppose it will be. Listen, Eustace, I have no real interest in speaking with you at this moment. At the moment. Oh, Hedwig, you just made a mistake. Eustace attempts to make conversation in the, with, Hedwig in the back. Oh, but Hedwig cuts her off. You two, let's not fight, hey? Let's pretend all our problems only exist in the Abbey. Not here, we're just traveling missionaries. Or brave soldiers on patrol. No. Or adventurous outlaws. Hedwig, I owe you an apology. More than one. She sighed and adjusted how she was sitting. She rested her forehead in her hands and looked at the floor of the cart. I should have said something yesterday, but I was indisposed. I'm sorry this took so long after all. Eustace pushes anyway. And apologizes. And I apologize for, well, you know, interestingly that they're not spelling apologize with an S here. Remind me. I felt strangely powerful. I folded my arms. I'm sorry that I dressed up as a ghost. Sorry I tried to scare you. I went a bit far. You did it more than once? Yes. How? Why? I mean, it was so... Elaborate. Well, I'm a sacrist. I saw the suit of armor and thought, well, this could be good for a lark. What on earth for? Some lark? It's Abbey tradition to do some sort of hazing prank. I just got carried away. It's so petty! Petty and cruel. Even if it was appropriate to haze nuns, which it is not, why couldn't it be nicer? Aren't there any nice pranks? You're right. What about, I don't know, a surprise feast or a gift? Something along those lines. I won't argue with you. You could have just said pooh, perhaps. I would still be a touch mean-spirited, but you killed a goat for your own entertainment. Eustace shook her head. I did not kill a goat. That is entirely in your imagination. I saw it plainly. Anything you saw like that was a trick of the mind, I promise. So I'm mad, is that it? No, it happens to everyone. In a heightened emotional state, you'll often see things that conform to your expectations, or fears, as it were. Which is ridiculous. She does, however, insist that there was no goat. That Hedwig, the goat Hedwig saw was not there. Did we? I don't know if we ever got anything about the pointed. Oh no, that was the ghost story. Never mind. Hedwig cuts her off. Eustace pushes away and apologizes. I was gonna say something else here. He says it was just supposed to be a hazing prank. It's true. Did you know there's a mosque in Turkey where worshippers believe they see the ghost of a young woman in the shadows? It sounds ridiculous, but so many people have claimed to have seen her, it could hardly be an accident. You all see a girl wearing a crown. I don't particularly care what they're up to in Turkey. Eustace let out a heavy sigh. Look, the point is, sometimes people say things that aren't there that feel very real. I promise you that he did not kill a goat. I may have been nasty to you, but I would not have killed an innocent animal just to scare you. So there's no goat at all? I did not kill a goat in front of you. I would not do that. But you would dress up as a ghost. Yes. And wave a flaming sword around. Yes, when you put it that way, it does sound rather a cruel joke. How did you even light the sword on fire? I brushed the blade with oil and held it up to a torch. That's all. I looked her dead in the eyes. She matched my gaze for a moment before the cart hit a bump and her glasses were knocked askew. Moira was chuckling softly. Oops. Sorry. I'm not very good at this. Eustace had rearranged the glasses inside. I don't always have a perfect grasp of how people might react to things I say or do. Sometimes I run with an idea that isn't clever as I think it is, or speak my mind to people who weren't interested in my input. I'm sure you've noticed that I can be rather inscrutable. I was going to say flat, but I'll take inscrutable. Eustace is Eustace! Yes. Thank you, Moira. See? At any rate, I would really like to put this behind us. We have to work together after all. Will you accept my apology? For what? Eustace was approaching this request as if my acquiescence was guaranteed, but I did not respond in kind. I felt vindictive. More vindictive than I had felt my entire life. She looked surprised that I hadn't budged. For my prank, as I said. And my behavior in general, I suppose, which, as you say, can be inscrutable. I'll do my best to change that. Does that include moving my things around? Perhaps putting things in my cell to find later? What? I found it. The copy of Matthew I dropped out of the window the night you were watching me in my cell. Hedwig, I do not know what you are talking about. You have no reason to lie about this anymore. Hedwig doesn't accept the apology. And instead accuses Eustace of being the figure she saw outside her window that she also suspects placed her copy, the copy of Matthew back on her bed. I saw you in that ridiculous costume the very night in my cell. I could see you in the grass. I was not there. My temper flared and I let an embarrassing noise somewhere between a groan and a shriek. I pulled up my frock and pulled the piece of cloth I'd found outside the abbey out somewhat awkwardly. Eustace looked utterly nonplussed. I found this out there. Who else could it have been but you? Any one of us? A drifter? A soldier marching past the abbey who got his cloak stuck on a branch. That just happened to coincide with one woman's mad delusions months later. Could have been anyone, Hedwig. But... No, but it wasn't me. Why should I believe you? After what you did the other night. You... I could feel myself turning scarlet as I sputtered. I noticed Moira shrinking in her seat ahead of us, and I suddenly felt very embarrassed. Are you going to hit me again? No. No, of course not. Alright. Well, you could if you wanted to. I don't want to. Well, that's good. She rubbed her cheek. It did hurt quite a bit. I felt horrible now. I looked toward the back of the cart for a while, watching the road move beneath us. I am sorry. Truly. And you promise that you haven't left any mysterious books for me anywhere. I did not put that book in your cell. I hadn't been to your cell at all, as a matter of fact. I looked back toward Eustace. She was holding a hand out to me, and she had the faintest hint of a pleading look in her eye. I was not sure what to do. I was still furious with her still, but I knew that letting that anger stew any longer would only serve to make me miserable after all. After all, I had to work in the same room. Not only that, but I still felt highly guilty for attacking Eustace in response to a practical joke. Justified or not, it was not a response that had ever been in my repertoire, and I very much wanted to never feel compelled to violence ever again. I wanted to bury those feelings deep in the ground forever. I was still mulling over my response when a pair of fritters appeared in front of my face. Will these help? Eustace and I looked over at Moira, whose back was still turned to us as she watched the road ahead. She had reached one arm behind her, two tasty-looking pastries, held like jealous cards between her fingers. I tucked the little black cloth that had been waving Eustace's face back into my stocking and sighed. Just wondering. Eustace and I both took one. I nibbled at it and instantly felt at peace. Huh? These are good. They're supposed to all be for the village, but I snuck a few away for the trip. I'm glad you did. I could hear Moira crunching onto her own fritter. Oh, so am I now. Goodness, these are some lucky people we're about to visit. I thought you didn't like Linbarrow, Moira. Oh, I have my criticisms. Eustace took another bite of a pastry. Suppose we all do. Catherine, most of all. Thought she would have approved of this gesture. Oh, she would have done it. She would have just complained a lot beforehand. And after... They chuckle as if sharing a private joke. Eustace insists that this isn't her, that this wasn't her. Even after Hedwig reveals the cloth. Moira diffuses all attention. Diffuses. Is it defuses or diffuses? Now let's look this up. We're gonna look this up. Is it diffuses the diffuse or defuse the tension? Alright, it's definitely defuse. It's interesting because you could theoretically use diffuse. I shouldn't trust the co-pilot thing. Yeah, but when things diffuse, yeah, you spread it out, so it would also theoretically make sense. Anyway, Moira defuses the tension by offering them some extra fitters that she took. They talk about Catherine. Catherine keeps coming up a bit, saying that she would not, she did not like Linbarrow particularly much. Although she'd still get the task done. After complaining about it a lot. We finished the fritters. Eustace licked her fingers and wiped the crumbs off her frock before extending a hand out to me again. Friends? I paused for a moment, but I couldn't keep the self-righteous act up much longer. Even if I did not fully believe that Eustace hadn't also placed the book in my cell as part of some elaborate next step in her foiled prank, I suppose I had no reason to hang it over her head forever. I reached out and grabbed Eustace's wrist, and her fingers curled around my own. Co-workers. Friends. Eustace just licked her fingers. Her saliva is now all over your wrist. Eustace smiled, but her face soon returned to its default flat expression as soon as she leaned back against the side of the cart. So why wouldn't Catherine have liked doing this? She also had opinions about the townsfolk. I'm a little shocked. Does anyone have a good relationship with the town? I'm sure the superior handles it all well enough. Surely it felt a little odd that nobody from the village came to seek your advice when you were anchoress. I was surprised until I had it explained to me that, well, that having a cart ride to even get there, aren't we? That's right. I think that people never really liked that fact. Put us on the wrong foot from the get-go. But Linbarrow Abbey is rather old, isn't it? Surely things might have, I don't know, improved. Right, the distance and inconvenience is just part of it. Or you'll see. I suppose if I had to put it delicately, if we had the ability to choose the kind of villagers our abbey served, which we don't, of course not, but if we did, well, it wouldn't be a town like Linborough. I was quite frankly appalled by this. If I hadn't already shaken hands and made up with Eustace, I might reconsider agreeing to the endeavor after hearing such conceited talk. It's a horrible thing to say. It is what it is. You'll see when we get there. They're not all bad. I was trying to think of things to say that wouldn't reopen just such a wound between Eustace and myself, and was struggling to come up with anything. Eustace says that, I guess the nuns at the abbey don't have a particularly good relationship with the villagers. And Eustace says she would rather have a different kind of villagers than the ones that are there. You'll see, she says. She tells Hedwig. However, just as the cart rounded a sharp switchback corner, I thought of something Catherine had said in the Misericorde. I didn't dare to mention the assignment the Superior had given me for this excursion, but I reasoned that since Catherine herself had mentioned it to me while drinking, it wouldn't arouse suspicion. Catherine's from the village, isn't she? Catherine was Irish. She means Catherine the First. Oh, silly me. Sorry. Alright, well. Hedwig brings up the topic of Catherine being from the village. Although Moira interjects about Catherine being Irish. Anyway, yes. Catherine used to live in Linborough. She mentioned something about being run out of town. She seemed rather bitter about it. As well she should. I'm surprised she told you all this. Yes, but yes, it's true. We don't talk about it much. It's a fast way to put her in a rotten mood. I would feel the same. It's so unfair. Would it be prying too much to ask what exactly happened? She was quite vague about it. Not our story to tell. Like I said, it's a touchy subject. Suffice to say, it put me off the town. The way they treated her. I won't pry. That's good. I'd be chuffed if she told you anything about it at all, though. That's real trust, that. This line of questioning seemed to be a non-starter. However, the other two believe it's not their story to tell. I'd hoped for a moment that I could get my assignment completed before stepping out of the cart. However, panic hit me as I realized that not only were my environs about to be completely unfamiliar, I was about to be surrounded by people. Strange new people who sounded like they were predisposed to dislike me. I did poorly enough navigating my own conflicts. Now, though, I would be forced to deal with a feud that sounded like it had been simmering for years. How long ago had Catherine been ousted from Linborough? How long before that had the townsfolk resented the abbey up on the hill? I was inheriting a mess that may well have started before I was even born. The rest of our journey went without conversation. Eustace furrowed her brow and rested her chin on her hands, gazing out of the back of the cart for the remainder of the trip. I couldn't bring myself to relax, and my asthma of indignance towards Eustace had more or less dissipated. Now panic was setting in. I began to worry about falling out of the cart and hurting myself. What if I got lost in town and Moira and Eustace were forced to leave me there? What if a particularly large crate fell on my head? Why are you spiraling all of a sudden? What if I was set upon by strangers with murderous or lascivious intent? What if I had to choose one of these scenarios, which was most likely and which would be my preferred outcome? I was mulling over these ghoulish bits of calculus so intensely that I didn't notice that the cart had stopped. Hedwig. We're here! Moira had stopped the cart next to a wooden post at the very edge of a very muddy road. Ugh, should have remembered to wear boots. I remembered. Moira finished tying the donkey's reins to the post and enthusiastically lifted her robe to show off her shoes. Ah, fancy. I didn't know there were boots at the Abbey. They're a must once it starts snowing. Ask the Superior about it when you get the chance. Although the ones we get typically aren't as plush as those. These were a gift. Lucky you. Hedwig, don't worry about the mud. Just get out of the cart. It looks really foul. Blech. Jump over here. It's not quite as mushy. I don't know. Just step down. It's not really that bad. A glance between Eustace, whose robe was already getting muddy around the fringe, and Moira, who was enthusiastically gesturing at me from her position on a harder-packed bit of road. Against my better instincts, I awkwardly positioned myself on the edge of the cart and... Ah! Miraculously, I landed on this dirty bit of road. My legs, clearly weak from my recent bout of sprinting, screamed at me to never do that again, and gave way almost immediately in protest. Luckily, Moira caught me. My head crashed into her shoulders, and we stumbled together for a few steps before regaining our footing. Sorry. Don't be. Who would have known that we had a little acrobat tucked away in that cell? Alright. Notes! Finally, they arrive at the town. There's mention that there are boots at the Abbey to be used during the snow. Which, Eustace forgot to bring, and which, Hedwig didn't know about. Eustace says they're a must for snow. Moira brought her own boots, which are more posh than the usual ones, which she says she received as a gift. Right. Where's Moira getting fancy gift boots? What's going on here? Don't be. Who would have known that we had a little acrobat tucked away in that cell? Yes, very well done. Unfortunately, I'm going to need both of you to step back over here to help me with the fritters. Rip. Thankfully, we didn't need to lug the whole crate around. Oh, you did end up having to traipse around in the mud to retrieve them. Darcy had organized the little sweets into three cloth sacks for us to carry. I realized that the heaviest thing about our cargo had been the chest itself, which looked like it might have been able to withstand a catapult. Where should we start? Eustace nodded towards a farmhouse not far from where a donkey was hitched. Here's as good a place as any. We lugged our bag of baked goods toward the modest house. The land was just on the edge of the huge hill we had just ridden our way down. A few trees dotted the well-grazed lawn, and a lone horse stood idly close to the stable. I couldn't help but feel that it looked deep in thought. As we approached, the side door to the house swung open. What's all this, then? We come bearing gifts? Is that right? A woman emerged from the gruff-looking man. Both of them looked cautious. Feels like a donkey's years since Sherlaya came down here. Sister Moira and Sister Eunice, right? Eustace, milady. My apologies. I don't recognize this one. Oh, this is Sister Hedwig. She's new. Alright. The first two they meet are a farmer and his wife. They mention it's been a long time since their last visit. Although the wife does recognize Moira and Eustace. I tried to say something, but all I could mutter was a little noise. I waved instead. We heard about Catherine. Terrible thing that. Can't help but feel responsible. Please don't. It's not your fault. Farmer, wife, Dell, and knife. A deli knife, maybe. James was a troubled boy well before we started looking after him. Oh. They're the two were looking after, or the two were looking after James Ormond. How fortuitous that we run into these two. No help in some people, that's what I've learned. James lived here. Aye, my nephew. Always a little funny one, but I never would have. As he was the farmer's nephew. I never would have. I didn't know it was that kind of blackguard. Lost his family in the war years ago. Aye. They were taken for spies traveling home one night. James's family were lost. Were taken for spies in the night. And he lost them. He'd be what? 22? 23 now. How old's Catherine with a K then? She was already married, we've heard that. Ooh. But then they did marry kind of young back then sometimes. He was supposed to be running the family in by now, but he wasn't cut out for being a landlord. Not sure there's much of an inn left. Anyway, we took him in, put him to work on the farm. Alright. Family owned an inn, and James would have been running it, but he wasn't fit for it. He's about 23 now. We do modest work here. Big enough town for an inn, apparently. We do modest work here. A little bit of animal husbandry, but the real money is in stabling the horses for folks in town. James was a real helping hand on a good day, but he had a habit of running off whenever he felt like it, sleeping in, being a nuisance in town. God rest him, but he was a sloppy worker. Terrible with animals. Never had more livestock go missing than when we left it up to him. We were doing something good taking him in. He had potential. Some people find their way later than others. James was apparently a sloppy worker. Didn't do his job a lot of the time. And often lost livestock. I really do believe that. It was only right. And now here we are. If you're here to solicit donations, it'd only be right for us to be generous. Oh, that's so kind. But we're actually here to bring you something. Moira opened her bag and held it out to the couple. Well now, did Sister Darcy make these? That's right. In that case, don't mind if I do. He and his wife happily took a pastry each. This is what happy looks like for her. Her expression is just permanently this, but she's happy. It's fine. They bit into them, and I could sense a relief of, I could see a sense of relief overtake the worried faces. Crumbs, that's good. Crumbs, that's good. Too right. Resting a farm face. He took another bite. As he munched, he pointed a thick, callous finger towards me. So it's your story. It's not altogether very interesting. I heard about Catherine and I felt compelled to help. After all, she was the chronicler and I used to write all day, so she was our anchoress. Oh, I see. One of those hermits. I didn't know they could just up and stop. It's unusual, certainly. I imagine it must be quite strange leaving a position like that after so much time. Were you born in there? No. I was very young when I started there. What's your favorite thing about being free? Oh, don't upset her. She wasn't not free before. It's an important job, innit? That's right. Oh, I didn't mean to offend. Still, though, it must be very different to be out and about all of a sudden. Hadwig's taken a real shine to her new work. Yes, he's really been putting her back into it. I couldn't tell if this was meant to be a jab at the altercation, I thought we had just put behind us or not, but it irritated me all the same.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm sorry, I never made use of your services while you were anchored. Only it's quite a commitment getting up there and back.
We had James to make that trip more often than not, shoving a baby through the squint. If there was one thing he was always good at, good for, was that.
Mail, supplies, that sort of thing. That was all his purview. Suppose he must have set his wicked sights on Sister Catherine. Maybe he was watching her this whole time.
Best not to speculate. And don't blame yourselves. If it would make you feel better to make some sort of donation, I can let the Superior know. Not that we came here to solicit that sort of thing, mind you. Oh, wait, what? Not that we came here to solicit that sort of thing, mind you. Oh, no, of course not. I hope I didn't offend. No.
It'd only be right. It'd only be right, yes.
I very badly wanted to tell these poor people that I had spoken with James and that I was trying my best, very best to help him. Whatever joy the fritters had brought was nothing compared to the pain I could sense behind their rugged faces. They seem to trust that that James's the accusations against James are true, but feel poorly about it. These were delicious, by the way.
Sister Darcy always was a talent. You lot should come down here more often.
I agree.
Suppose you'll be off to see the town now?
Yes. Hopefully we bought enough of these.
Won't bother you for seconds then. Have a good day now, sisters.
Pax vobis. We all exchange nods. Eustace led the way past the farm back toward the road. That went better than I'd feared. Really, I'd rather get cupped than do that again. Those poor people. They really were very sweet. How horrible for them, though. I only meant that... I don't know, in the cart ride down, I was half expected to be met with swords and spears. Well, who says we won't be? We're not in the village proper yet. I stopped dead in my tracks. The buildings ahead of us loomed like some dark forest gate, and I suddenly became very aware, once again, that I was further from my cell than I had ever been. Further than the hills, further than the hospitalum. Oh, Eustace, don't scare her. Sorry. Just being glib. Are you ready, Hedwig? Are you ready, Hedwig? Hold on. I doubled over, still clinging to my bag of fritters. Tried my best to take deep breaths, but it was difficult. I was no longer in complete control of my faculties. Hedwig. You can do it, Hedwig. You can do it, Hedwig. I'm so far from home. Your friends with you. It's alright. What if I just drove the cart back myself? I could send someone else back down with it to collect you. But quite enough for a day, I think. Do you know how to drive a cart and mule? It's gonna be fine. I was just grousing on the ride down. It's just silly personal drama. I probably made it seem bigger than it really is. Hedwig is relieved. Hedwig's relief that the things had gone well. Relatively well. Is dashed immediately by Eustace's mention that they weren't actually in the town proper yet. Which sends Hedwig spiraling. Spiraling. At worst, it'll be a little awkward. You can handle awkward. Go back. Look, if someone's rude to you, you have my permission to slap them. Eustace! I took a particularly large gulp of air and stood up straight. Uh-oh. Look, you definitely shouldn't stop anyone here. I was joking. It was funny. Okay. But seriously, do not. I won't. I would never. Guess I got lucky. Are you ready? Let's get this over with, shall we? Alright. I think that I feel like I wanna end stream right now. This is probably as good a time as we're gonna get for a little bit. I think we would otherwise. I think this section is probably gonna end up being a little long, so I think now's as good a time as any to stop. I did kind of go over time last time, so yeah. I don't know. Why am I making excuses? I think it's a good time to stop, and I want to end stream early. I didn't feel like streaming very long. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, I was feeling a little bad. Or a little like I didn't want to stream. So we got 3.5 hours in. That's pretty good. I like that. Anyway. So yeah, we'll continue this probably next Tuesday. Maybe we'll do it Saturday. I don't know. Saturday, if it's not this, it'll be games and demos, most likely. We'll see though. I haven't quite decided anything yet. But yeah. Well, that is gonna be from me. I did want to mention, by the way, before we go, I made a terrible error in life, and by that I mean I started a new file of Mina the Hollower. I actually did that. I actually did a new file a couple days ago, and I 100%ed that file. No, but the real mistake was starting a new file after that. Where I turned on this mode called Uramina or Uramina. I don't know how it's like supposed to be pronounced, and it's awful. It's I hate it. I'm still playing it, but what it does is, alright, so it's a item randomizer. It shuffles basically every single key item, trinket. It shuffles every trinket, every bone gem, every key, every other key item like the boarding pass, and it just shuffles all of their locations. It removes most of the underlabs. Like, there are no underlabs in any of the dungeons so far, or any of the paths on the way to the dungeons, or any of that. Oh my god. It has a setting where if you die, like if you lose all your sparks and you don't get your bones, you lose your bones. You lose you lose 1 level in each of your stats. Also, all the trinkets are shuffled as well, but that's not quite as bad. You take 1.5 times damage, and yeah, it's been a rough go. I had a really strange start. First of all, instead of giving me my healing items at the very beginning of the game, Cappy gave me my stupid spark container, which is probably the best item I could have gotten that wasn't like early in the game. So what ended up happening is I have not lost any bones at all because the spark container just lets me get them immediately. So I've not died technically. And I've noticed that the levels are designed in such an interesting way, where even though there's no actual checkpoints or and no underlabs on the way to the bosses anymore, there's always like a shortcut that'll let you reduce the amount of time it takes you to get to the end of the dungeon. I finished Queensbury Crypt and the Bayou so far, so the same order as before. And oh yeah, I didn't get my first vials for healing until halfway through Queensbury Crypt. That is where I got my first vials. I could not heal before that. Oh yeah, another thing that they do. Going into the fucking underlab doesn't heal you fully. It only heals you up to halfway. So in order to heal fully, you need to spend a vial, or you need to earn the plasma, then spend a vial to heal yourself up, and then go back into the underlab if you want any full heals. Shit's wild. Anyway, so yeah, that's what's been going on. That's Mina the Hollower. I don't know why I started playing this. And the worst part is you don't even get any feats for doing it. It turns off feats for playing this mode. It's wild. Anyway, So that's gonna be it for me. Thank you all so much for hanging out. We're gonna go find somebody to raid on YouTube. If you're all here on, we're gonna go find someone to raid on Twitch. If you're all here on YouTube, hope you have a good night. Hope to see you again on Thursday or Tuesday, whichever day you decide to pop in. But yeah, that is gonna be it for me. Hope to see you again soon. Later. Bye. All right.